Hey, welcome once again. This is our little show, Conspiracy or Not, Here We Come. I'm Aaron. I'm joined with Ian and Amy. Hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Amy.
Howdy.
And
Hi,
look
Amy.
what we
Hi,
have.
Aaron.
We have Bob Schlenker from 17Stormy17. Bob, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for inviting me.
Okay.
Welcome, Bob. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to meet you. And I can't wait to get into these subjects. And
Thank you for joining us.
I think it's probably important that we put up the early caveat this evening that I want to say that there's going to be a graphic warning because the subject matter we cover this evening is going to be disturbing. So you may not want to be listening to the show with little ones in the background. You may not want to be listening to the show with colleagues who might hear out of context and not understand what we're discussing, because we are going to go deep into the esoteric, into the occult, and some really creepy aspects of that. I think Bob has done some fantastic work over on his channel, and I would urge everybody who's interested in some really good breakdowns of some of the propaganda decoding that he does over there. And so what I would like to do right now, I am going to actually read from an email that I received from Bob, and it's a description of himself. It's something of a bio, and when I get done, I'll let Bob fill in any blanks. Now, again, I am reading from Bob's email, so if I say I'm not speaking of myself. So here we go. This is a Christian ministry. This is from Bob Schlenker, and I hope I pronounced that properly. Known for his Christian ministry for the teaching of deeper esoteric truths like biblical types and patterns. Since 2012, Aaron Herman has been working with me, meaning Bob. My background in engineering, building, construction, and software programming. I worked in Silicon Valley for a few years before going full-time. You're currently launching a software business, a web application called the Chasmatron. I hope I pronounced that proper. Chasmatron 2000 that facilitates the presentation and development of thematic structure called chat. Is it correct?
It's a hard K sound.
Go ahead and pronounce it for us.
It's the Chiasmatron 2000. It's for chiasmus and parallelism.
Okay, thank you. So you're producer of a viral YouTube video, Obama, Yes We Can equals Thank You Satan. So that was you that put that one out there?
It's my fault. I admit it.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that video when it first came out.
Me too.
So let's see. Reading again from Bob's email, he says, I have become known for blogging and making videos decoding occult rituals like the ceremonies, opening and closing of the Olympic Games, Super Bowl halftime ceremonies, the Goddard Tunnel opening, the media awards shows, films, song lyrics, music videos, TV shows, commercials, ads, esoteric art, logos, and brand imagery. The point is, the point of these is to inform, educate, to help you see that things are not as they appear, to help you see how things really are. When you learn to see what you're really looking at, you have a better understanding of the nature of our world. There is a grand conspiracy, and there are supernatural forces at work. When you can discern what you're seeing in the symbolism, the wallpapers, and the symbolism that wallpapers our world, You're more free from the influences of mass mind control, and being more free, better able to choose how to respond and engage in the world. And I have to agree with that absolutely, completely. And I'll continue on here because I really think this email is excellent here. The world really is like in the old John Carpenter movie, They Live, which is a cult classic most people are familiar with, especially in our circles. This is obviously from 1988. You put on the special glasses and you see your environment as the subliminal programming interface it is, and the population as a collection of hapless victims and abusive controllers, slaves and handlers and programmers. Another analogy is that we're involved in a marionette show where all the world is a stage. When you can see the puppet strings and understand them, you know the puppets are dancing and acting out their drama because they are controlled by unseen forces off stage. Those who work the strings have many stagehands and agents to support the theater. This is the Illuminati and their gods and the networks of Luciferian illumined and their slaves. The controlling players are literally magicians who practice witchcraft and mass hypnosis, and this is concealed very effectively due to what they refer to as cover spells. What Aaron, Herman, and I do puts the evidence of their work on display. We interpret the symbolism through which their power is asserted, exposing their ways and means. This is functionally the breaking of the cover spells. This all helps us to interpret what's going on in the world. In religious institutions, the version of history we learn in school, the hidden agendas behind the physics of CERN, LHC, the Large Hadron Collider, the the green agenda, the war on terrorism, and so on. It helps us understand the Mandela effect and what the Great Pyramid is for, together with the networked, energetic, ancient monuments around the globe and solar system. These things all must be and ultimately will be understood in biblical framework. The illumined brotherhoods value the biblical texts more than most professing Jews and Christians do. The gods they serve give the scriptures respect, knowing they are true. And two more paragraphs here, and they are short. TheOpenScroll.com, which is Bob's website, TheOpenScroll.com, one of the most popular pages, addresses the role of pharmaceuticals in our world, their true history, and the spiritual implications. Another involves the bell, which occultists and priests and priestesses use for magical purposes. Other popular subjects involve celestial signs and their interpretation, and understanding UFOs as heaven's vehicles and aliens as foreign to this physical domain as fallen angels. Several themes dominate occult symbolism. On the Open Scroll blog, there are several series of posts dedicated to these themes, which provide a pretty good foundation that we continue to build as we learn more and more. Some of our videos follow certain of these themes, and some are dedicated to specific media, like the Back to the Future franchise, for example. And with that, I would just remind people that Bob operates the Open Scroll blog and website, and he obviously is known for his 17Stormy17 YouTube channel. At this point, I'll just go ahead and say hello, Bob, and again, thank you for being with us. And do us a favor, fill us in on who you are, what you're about, fill in any blanks that weren't already covered. Tell us how you got started. That's really an interesting one there. Tell us how you got started on all this, when you got started, what may have prompted you to get started, and take it from here, Bob.
Well, it's a lot of good questions there. I got started really back in 1980. I'd been trying to live a normal life as a non-normal person, and it wasn't very successful. And some things happened in my life, and I realized that I was really not very well prepared for the real world. And over the course of several years, as I got involved in Christian ministry, I began to see that the world was very, very deep, very profound, and it wasn't generally acknowledged. And a lot of the studies that I began to do from the Bible were at cross purposes to what the mainstream versions of Christianity tend to put out there. And as I continued to pursue those kind of more fringe areas, I began to see that there was symbolism in the Bible that was really being echoed in the world. And probably the most dramatic change came in 2008 when I was doing mostly biblical studies still, and a friend of mine watched the Olympics, and she saw the closing ceremony from Beijing, and she told me that she saw the things being modeled in there that I'd been teaching about. And she sent me a video, and I checked it out, and she was right. They were modeling things that seemingly they would have no business modeling in a public ceremony. But it was undeniable. They were very detailed, very precise with it. So I ended up doing a long study, probably 6 months worth of study, put out a series of 8 pages, really long pages on my website. And in the course of going through that, I decoded a crop sign and decoded several of the events that took place during the Olympics and some related things that were going on at the time. There was a Democratic National Convention going on, and Bill Clinton was there, and he gave a little speech, and he ended up getting like something like a 3-minute long standing ovation just for coming out on stage, which was really unprecedented. And things like that were right during the Olympics. The crop sign happened like right at the midpoint. They take place over 2 weeks, and after 1 week, that's when this crop sign happened. And it was a big number 8 in a field. And the number 8 was highlighted all during the Olympics. And one of the other things that I studied at that time, I was led to follow up on Jimmy Page's presentation, where he got up on top of a double-decker bus and did Whole Lotta Love, Led Zeppelin's classic tune. Mm-hmm. And when I researched why it might be that they were doing that exactly in the context, I saw that there was a controversy about reverse speech in their song Stairway to Heaven. And I'd run across... Yeah, backmasking is a technical production word that they use for it. And when I pursued that a little bit more, I found some other videos that were very detailed and going through more of the lyrics of the song, actually all the lyrics of the song in reverse speech, which kind of rocked my world at the time. So I began to look into a couple other aspects of that, and that led me to produce that Obama Yes We Can equals Thank You Satan video. And that caused quite a stir at the time. And it's kind of funny because it was so far different from the other kind of more serious stuff that I'd been doing. To become known for something as off the wall as that just still makes me laugh to this day. But it's very inspiring because you know it's true when you hear it. You realize, how does that work? And it makes you think about the nature of our reality. It makes you think some deep thoughts.
On the subject of song, we already had a comment by Colin James McIntosh. He said, read the lyrics to Bye Bye American Pie with the understanding the widowed bride are the unraptured Christians, and the day the music died, every time music pairs, sub it with church age. I'm not sure if I understand that. Maybe you can make some sense out of it.
Yeah, the song has some remarkable lyrics. It's one of several songs, actually, which has a layer of interpretation where just take it as metaphor and it fits perfectly. And I think that's probably legitimate. the interpretation that he offered.
You mentioned Jimmy Page before. He's come out and said music is magic. What do you think about that statement?
Well, he should know, right?
This is the guy who bought Aleister Crowley's house, right?
Yeah.
He lives in his old house, yeah.
Yeah, he should know, absolutely. You know, Bob, I kind of wanted to get into music later on, but screw it, since we're on the subject. I was reviewing your Pizza Esoterica series, and one of your breakdowns was discussing the set on stage at the Katy Perry concert, and you had mentioned the sunflowers that had brown centers, and we're going to get into this. We're going to get into this deep a little bit later. I do want to cover my news and views, you know, in the beginning, but just I'm going to throw this at you. You said something about, and pardon me, I don't remember exactly what you said in the write-up. You said something about the brown-eyed. The brown-eyed Susan is a flower known as a brown-eyed Susan or something like that. Well, it immediately brought to my mind the lyric "Brown-Eyed Girl."
Van Morrison.
Yeah, so I imagine you've already been there, done that with that one, right?
I don't think I've written anything on it, but yeah, you're barking up the right tree there.
Well, yeah, you know, you're my brown-eyed girl. We should probably save that for the proper context. We need to get into this maybe a little bit better before we go there on that one, because it's nasty, man. I mean, the stuff we're going to talk about tonight is really, it's really creepy. It's really dark, and it's really occulted. And I want to commend you on your ability to break down the esoteric meanings behind particularly movie scenes and things of that nature on this subject. And honestly, the stuff that we study around here and the stuff that we talk about, nothing surprises us anymore with these occulted bastards that are running our planet. So here's what I want to do first. Let me get this out of the way. We all know about the YouTube censorship that's been going on with Google and YouTube and many other platforms, Facebook, Twitter, apparently Snapchat, virtually all manner of social media are cracking down on free speech left and right. And we really are witnessing George Orwell's 1984 in action, quite literally.
Definitely.
Most people are probably familiar with Dr. Stephen Greer of the Disclosure Project. And whatever you think of the guy, I don't care. If you think he's a shill, I know, everybody's a shill. I'm not endorsing the guy, but I am going to say, I'm just going to point out a little bit of news here. His YouTube channel was shut down. His C. SETI YouTube channel was recently shut down. Okay. Now, YouTube has demonetized here's another one here. YouTube has demonetized a black conservative channel known as Diamond and Silk. You guys heard of this? Are you familiar with the channels?
No, I've never heard of it.
Nope.
Not me.
Well, they're conservative politically. There are two heavyset black women who run the YouTube channel Diamond and Silk. They've gotten pretty popular. In fact, so popular that Donald Trump actually endorsed them during a rally, not only verbally, but he actually had them come on stage with him. Okay, there's video of this. These two women were featured on mainstream media, and then they were invited to speak at a Trump rally where Trump even said, quote, "I hope you're monetized." So they have been demonetized thanks to YouTube. And for those who tune into us regularly, you're probably aware that last week during our Charles Koss interview, I was in the process of doing a screen share, and I got a message in the live environment warning me that I was not authorized to use that content, and they threatened to close the broadcast. They were going to shut it down. And then after that, they disabled my ability to screen share for through the rest of the show. So that was a first for us, and it was kind of shocking. Today, I'll also mention, like I did off air, I uploaded, and it was a mirror. It's not even my video. Anaconda Malt Liquor put out a video on the Barcelona event. Matty D mirrored that video. I thought it was good enough to mirror again, so I mirrored it from Matty D, and within an hour, it was taken down. So, Bob, have you had any trouble like that?
I don't have anything monetized, but I've had quite a few of my videos censored, and mostly it's because of content ownership complaints. But it doesn't really make sense, because where other people on other channels will have a certain amount of content, I might have just something very brief, and it may even be altered somewhat, and it'll still block my video. So we've had to be very creative, and I post all my videos uncut and host them myself, and so any that people want to see, they can still see it, but of course it's not widely available, because YouTube, they kind of own the video market. So if they can block it, they're pretty much dooming you to obscurity.
All right, hang on one second. I would like to add an additional moderator to the chat room. So that we have plenty of wrenches to keep out the trolls, because we are heavily trolled on this show, between at least a couple of people.
Yes.
Now there's also a channel that I have unsubscribed, and I won't mention who that is. I'm not here to bash anybody. But I've noticed that, and this has happened to me twice this week. I mentioned to this to Amy on Skype. I would unsubscribe to this person or someone, and then they still, for days, they continue to show up. Their videos continue to show up in my subscription feed.
Yeah, I get that too.
So, I mean,
It doesn't seem to go away.
so it also seems that an awful lot of channels are getting strikes and for videos on the Charlottesville car attack. Anthony 2B got a strike. Johnny Supertramp had videos removed for bullying and harassment. I had a video removed today for Barcelona. So I know
I've had a video removed. One of our shows.
So, Bob, I noticed that you mentioned that the content that you share when it's someone else's, that you alter it. I've noticed that you tweak the audio a little bit. Apparently, you're obviously aware of the censorship. Some of your videos even say in the video that this portion has been removed by content creator via YouTube, etc. So, I mean, have you had any strikes? Have you had any other trouble beyond that?
I've been cautious, and as soon as there's a warning on the content, I will typically address that immediately and try again. And if it doesn't work, I'll try again until it goes up. And it may be blocked in some countries, or there may be other restrictions for monetizing, but they'll typically let it go. And that's good enough for me, because I don't monetize it anyways, and I don't really care. But there's this thing called fair use, where you're legally supposed to be able to use things for certain purposes.
Yeah, education, commentary, satire. We're not monetized. We give credit to the original creator. That all falls into fair use, and it appears that those rules are out the window these days. So censorship is in full swing, you guys. Freedom of speech is hanging on by a thread.
Yes, indeed it is.
An open expression is being held on by a thread too.
So now I saw something on a channel that I subscribe to. It's called Computing Forever. This is an Irish guy. He's got like 250,000 subscribers. He's really good at social commentary. It's pretty much all he does. And he showed something today that was from Airbnb. This is the website that it's sort of like Uber and Lyft, where, you know, people just network. And, you know, if you're going to go travel, and let's say you have a house for rent, and, you know, you list it on Airbnb, and then somebody wants to visit your town, and they sign up and they go, oh, this is nice. It's in my price. It's where I want to be. They can rent your house through this service. Most people are familiar with Airbnb. So ahead, I'm going to read. This is something that is, I honestly don't know. This is either out of an article, or it was a tweet or something directly from Airbnb. But I'm going to read this. It says, and by the way, the rally that we're speaking of, it says ahead of the rally, the housing service Airbnb barred rentals to people it believed were traveling to participate. And I'm pretty sure that this is about the rally that's about to take place in Boston tomorrow. It's in another alt-right rally happening in Boston. I'm pretty sure it's happening tomorrow. And now I want to be clear. I'm not 100% sure if they're talking about the rally in Boston, or because Charlottesville just happened a couple of days ago. This may be a few days old, okay? But I do want to read this to you. It says, ahead of the rally, the housing service Airbnb barred rentals to people it believed were traveling to participate. The company said it used its existing background checks and, quote, input from the community to identify users who didn't align with its standards. Anyone care to comment? Because that pisses me off. That's out of line. That is above and beyond. You know, and I want to read you something else here, because I told this to my wife, and she looked up to see what she could find on the subject. And pardon me, give me 1 second. Let me try to find this here. This is pretty interesting. This comes from TechCrunch.com. Airbnb is banning people trying to attend a white supremacist rally. Now, this was posted by Megan Rose Dickey on August 8th, 2017. So that's a full 10 days ago. Quite possible they were talking about the Charlottesville rally. It says, ahead of a white supremacist rally this Saturday, okay, there it is, in Charlottesville, Virginia, Airbnb has deactivated the accounts of some people who are trying to attend the event, Gizmo first reported. It's not clear how many accounts Airbnb has deactivated. We asked the company, and they told us that there are no numbers to share. Airbnb did, however, provide TechCrunch with the following statement. In 2016, we established the Airbnb community commitment, reflecting our beliefs that to make good on our mission of belonging, those who are members of the Airbnb community accept people regardless of their race, religion, national origin, ethnicity, disability, sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, or age. Now, before I continue reading, I would like to point out that nowhere in there is political ideology included. So, continuing on with the statement, and it's not very long, a couple sentences, and I'll wrap this up. It says, we asked all members of the Airbnb to affirmatively sign on to this commitment. When, through our background check processes or from input of our community, we identify and determine that there are those who would be pursuing behavior on the platform that would be antithetical to the Airbnb community commitment, we seek to take appropriate action, including, as in this case, removing them from the platform. Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? I mean, is that enough to chap your ass? What does Airbnb have? What business do they have? Look, they're a private business. They can do what they want. But let's honestly, that is discrimination right there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
How dare you run a background check on me and determine that my political ideology is such that you won't rent to me because you're afraid I'm going to attend some freaking rally.
Yeah, that's beyond the pale. It really is. It's getting out of hand, but it's the kind of world that the psychopaths in control want to create.
Anybody else?
This kind of thing has been going on a long time. A lot of people haven't really talked about it very much, but when I was a young man, graduated from college, I was looking for a job in 1977, I guess it was, and I found that there was quota that needed to be met, and there was race and gender profiling, and I happened to be a young white man, and there was far too many white men, and so the quota meant that, you know, they had to get things in order. They had to equalize the balance. So no more hiring of white men. So nobody talked about it very much. It was just understood this is how it was. You know, you'd read about it in the paper, and the implications weren't made known, but it was very obvious. I got you know, shut down over and over again, and I saw people getting hired who were not nearly as qualified as I was, just because quota, the racial gender profile had to be met. So this was back in '77.
Wow.
And really, it's been going on in one form or another ever since. So when you talk about different kinds of discrimination, you know, it's just been a part of life. And, you know, most cultures, at most times, it's just kind of understood. So, you know, I don't really see anything new in particular, but it continues to have a big impact on the way people interact with each other. You know, if people were just honest about the things that they do, well, it'd be a whole different world.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I wouldn't have anything to blog about if people were just straight up honest about what they're doing.
Yeah, we'd all be out of jobs, wouldn't we?
That's right.
So I have a legitimate question for you regarding these quote unquote events that have been taking place lately. All these false flags, and I know that you primarily focus on decoding the esoteric nature of film and media. And I know that, you know, your channel doesn't spend much, if any, time breaking down and decoding the events as they come at us, these false flags. Here's a phenomenon that seems to be reoccurring that I'm curious to get your take on. Every single time, it seems, no matter what the event, whether it's a school shooting or a car drives over somebody or a fake bombing or whatever, the victims always seem to have all this love and forgiveness for the perp. Do you know what I mean? I'll give you an example real quick. In Charlottesville, the mother of Heather Heyer, Heil Hitler, Heather Heyer, I'm sorry, I'm not bullying. That was a joke. Okay, I'm not bullying. All right. Her mother is on Anderson, Pooper, Scooper, CIA, Vanderbilt, Cooper.
Propaganderson.
Yes. The mother of Heather Heyer is all over mainstream media, giving interviews the day after, 2 days after, 3 days after, 4 days. You know, you'd think she'd be planning a funeral, but no. She's given interview after interview. And she said, I wrote this down. Let me find this real quick. She said, quote, I believe that he thought hate was going to be the answer and that hate is going to fix things. But he was wrong, and that he will, she says, but he was wrong, and that he will someday come to see that. And I am sorry for the pain he will go through when he sees that.
Yeah, it's like third party almost. She even said after she said he's ruined his life and he's disturbed my life.
Yeah,
That's what she said.
Yes.
He's disturbed my life. What do you mean? You just had your daughter just got killed, and your life's disturbed.
Yeah.
With a straight face, so matter of factly, it's just another day in the False Flag Roadshow, isn't it?
So what's your take on that, Bob? Why can you give me an explanation from your experience and your knowledge of the occult and how they operate? Because we know this is scripted, we know it's a staged event, we know this is fake bullshit that are feeding us. Why, Bob, do you think that we always hear these victim family members come on TV? I mean, this happened all the way back from Charleston church shooting. They always just, I'm sorry for you, and they forgive, and it's, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. What's the message here?
Well, that would be a good Christian response, except for it is scripted, and they do have an agenda and all that. And, you know, granted, there may be an exception where it is legitimate, but I think it's pretty obvious for those who pay attention that it's well crafted. It's propaganda, and they're targeting and manipulating people's emotions and their thoughts. And
well, I mean, wouldn't it logically, at least from the ground, from the view that we have from the ground, wouldn't it seem logical that they in control would want us, if we know they manipulate our emotions, we know this, wouldn't they want us to be angry at the Muslims so they could have support for their further bombings in Yemen or Qatar or Syria, wherever they want to go? Wouldn't it seem logical that rather than try to manipulate our emotions, to just feel empathy and compassion for the perpetrators of these horrible crimes? Wouldn't it make more sense to rile us up and get us ready to go to war again? I mean, I don't get this. This one goes over my head.
Well, one thing that I thought about was the possibility that they're trying to normalize and just get people to accept people who do these things. That's a possibility.
Well, they're creating tension. They're working on one end and they're working on the other end, and they're pulling one against the other to create tension. So they can't have it all go in one direction. They can't have it all go in the other direction. They've got to manage the emotions with this tension. And this is really the dynamic force, I believe, that makes it work. It's like a magical force when you create this tension, and you've got to have it. Otherwise, it's not engaging. People won't engage with it. And you've got to have that engagement.
You make a very good point there. Now, I've studied, at least for my part, I've studied and looked into Operation Gladio B, Operation 40, which is an offshoot of Gladio, and also the CIA, which also has the same underlying motto, which is a strategy of tension. Kind of interesting the way you phrased it, because that's exactly what I thought of it, as a strategy of tension. They have to keep us in an emotional state of tension and confusion so that we don't think logically. And that's been a plan for a very long time, and they've been working through various means to bring that about.
I've been thinking lately about George Soros too, right? How he's being exposed more and more lately, right? And he probably's like, okay, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. I'll set this up now and just laugh at us,
Well, I don't know how much of that is likely, Ian, only because I am certain that each and every one of these events isn't sort of a, hey, let's do this, okay, let's do it. But it has been planned for months and probably years, and maybe even decades in advance.
Well, were you going to go into that Craigslist ad, Aaron?
No, but you can. Feel free to. Absolutely.
There was a Craigslist ad for crowd gatherers.
Crowds on demand or something like that?
Crowds on demand. That's what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, all they got to do is call you. You probably have to sign a disclosure, right? A
Non-disclosure agreement. Yep.
non-disclosure agreement, right? And they'll call you whenever they need you, and they'll just all go down there and form a big crowd, and then pull off their staged event, and then that's it. That's what they.
Yep.
That's what I think happened down there. They just blended in with a big protest and pulled it off because they probably had that whole block cordoned off on both sides.
Well, when you look at the aerial images of that, you can see that everybody's piled up in the intersection right there, and there's nobody in any other direction.
There you go. That just solidifies my point.
And I'm going to say it's not that they blended in with the protesters. I think what happened is both sides were crowds on demand, some playing one side and some playing the other.
Oh yeah,
none of the people there were there organically. None.
No, they're getting
Zero.
paid
Zip,
$20 an hour probably.
5, I'm led to believe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
okay, let's all right, let's put that bullshit behind us. I want to get into Bob and his work. I don't know, Bob, did you put together any kind of slideshow or any presentation, or do you just want to wing it tonight?
I want to wing it. I want to find, you know, what's really engaging, what's really working in your lives. Where's you know, what is really compelling to you, and you know, let's talk about that.
Well, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Ian.
I'm under the firm belief that the powers that be, the high priests, whoever's running this show, right, is basically relieving their own karma by by showing us, either consciously or subconsciously, right, showing us what they're doing to us before they do it, and leaving clues that we could easily trace if we looked into it. What I think it's all about relieving their own karma onto the creator. How do you feel about that?
I think that's a valid perspective. I think there's several layers to why they do that, but that's certainly one that you'll hear from time to time.
I mean, of course, you think they're going to mock us, right? They're gonna put it in front of our faces and laugh at us because we can't see it, right? It's hidden in plain sight, right? But I think there's more to it. I think there's more of a ritual to it and more of a relieving their karma. I don't know what you guys think of that.
Yeah, that's certainly valid. You know, they have other reasons. There's this thing called theurgy, and what a theurgist does is he takes his cue from the gods he serves, and he performs these rituals to get into their good graces. And to a large degree, that's responsible for the production of Hollywood films and logos and all this other stuff.
Right.
Theurgy is not a word that you hear much about, and it seems kind of obscure, but when you look into what it really means and what the practice involves, that's a very significant layer of all this programming, subliminal activity.
Now, do you think?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ian.
Now, do you think that they would be communicating with each other through this form of symbolism, or putting things in movies and music and whatnot?
You mean one theurgist to another?
Like one, you know, like there would be a global group of this, right? I believe there's a global cabal at work, right? They're all,
sure.
Yeah, and they're just sending each other information, telling the rest of the brotherhood or the society, whatever, that this is what's going on, this is who did it, and this is what's going to happen, right? By showing them, instead of actually having to meet together to do it.
I think they do meet together, but they do have certain themes that go out at different times, and I know that there is a layer of communication between the groups of elite, but there's still a lot of conflict between the groups of the elite too, but the strings are pulled from higher up. And so it's a lot of this that's in common that you see going on is a result of kind of different strings, but going to the same person. You know, a lot of the conflict that we see is genuine, even though they're on the same team.
So what can you tell me about, and this might be wildly off topic because I haven't had the chance to look into this yet. You mentioned something in, forgive me if I don't remember where I saw it, but I was reviewing some of your videos and looking at your blog a little bit. You mentioned something about Euclid's 47th problem.
Mm-hmm.
Can you enlighten me? What is that?
Well, the Freemasons, a lot of them will wear a pin, and it's got 3 squares on it, and it's a proof of the Pythagorean theorem using areas. A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Okay, that I get.
When you're doing geometry, you have a right triangle, and you can calculate the length of one side based upon knowing the lengths of the other two by using this formula. A squared and B squared are the squares of the two adjacent to the right angle.
Gives you the hypotenuse, gives you the, and then you can calculate the length through Pythagoras. That much I understand. So that's it there?
That is the basis, but there's an esoteric interpretation, and that's why I make reference to it. And what it means is it's ancient sex magic that has to do with Osiris and Isis and Horus. Because if you take the 2 sides and you project them onto the hypotenuse is a projection of both of those 2 sides. And with the 47th problem, it's a proof showing you that A squared plus B squared does equal C squared because of the area. And when you add the area up, usually they're using the fundamental Pythagorean triangle with the dimensions of 3 on one side, 3 units, 4 units on another side, and then the hypotenuse is 5 units. And so with this basic proportion, they assign the value of Osiris to the side with 3. So 3 is basically code for Osiris. And then 4 is code for Isis. And then the projection, or their son, their offspring, their union, is Horus. And so this is about sex magic producing Horus in the world, bringing them into concretion every time that they're using this form of code 47.
Do you know the codes, like from 1 to 2?
I've learned some of them.
Tell me which ones you know.
Code 33 is really big. It's pretty expansive. One of the main levels has to do with sodomy, ritual sodomy, the kind that brings illumination. And I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves there, but that's a real fundamental.
Right.
Code 47 is the sex magic.
Where we're going to go, and I want people to be prepared that this is the subject that I warned you about at the beginning of the show. You don't want children around. You may not want coworkers and colleagues listening in if they're not familiar with the context, because we will be delving into the ritual sodomy, particularly as it's encoded in music and media. But go ahead, Bob, continue.
Some of the other really big numbers, the smaller ones are significant, like 3 is Osiris, 4 is Isis, 5 is Horus. And there's some really obvious examples of these that I point out over and over and over again on my blog. There's also a code 66, that's an abyss code. There's code 93, you could call it, which deals with the law. Aleister Crowley and his law, which is basically described in short as do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Yep.
Love is the law, love under will. And when you say 93, it's code, kind of shorthand, and it's used as a greeting also.
Cut out. Hear me repeat that, please.
You want me to repeat the law?
Yeah, just the last one sentence, I think. You just cut out for a minute.
Okay. Love is the law, love under will. And the word will is thelema, and so this is also called the law of thelema, T-H-E-L-E-M-A.
Yeah.
So code 93, there's also 12, code 12, which is a time code, code 13, which has a lot of facets to it. One of the primary ones has to do with the mastery of time. There's a code.
And that's funny because JFK was shot at the 113th frame. There's 93 million miles to the sun. That's interesting.
Yeah, the numbers are really important because mathematics is a universal language. And it's also a really simple way to encode meaning into everyday situations and objects, which that's really the basis for this kind of symbol magic. So the numbers are very important. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphorical language. One thing stands for another.
Means another, yeah.
So let me see. It's interesting that you brought up the coding of time and the manipulation of time, because that's another aspect that I really want to talk to you about. In fact, in many of your esoteric breakdown videos, you discuss the symbolism or metaphor of the bicycle.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate to me on that one?
Yeah, the bicycle's really got a lot going on. It's ubiquitous. Everybody's got a bike. We see them all over the place. They don't mean anything unless it's in a particular context, and then it's very meaningful. Oftentimes it's used as a dimensional transiting vehicle. Think of a UFO, one of heaven's vehicles. And so a simple bicycle is used as a dimension transiting vehicle of one kind or another. And the bicycle is also used as a basis for the love code, which I call code 54, because it's the occult gematria of love in two different ways. Comes out to 54. And this is exploited quite a bit. And it's attached to the bicycle symbol because in French, it's the word velo, V-E-L-O, which is an anagram for love. And so basically in this anagram metaphor, you see a bicycle, it's equivalent to velo, it's equivalent to love. It's code 54. So when you see a bicycle, it's a dimension transiting vehicle, which usually has to do with Stargates, which usually has to do with Horus, the concretion of Horus in this realm. And it's also this love code, which, you know, when normal people, we think of love, and it's a feel-good, it's a wonderful thing. Love is good. But in the occult world, it's backwards. I told you what the thelema law was, and when they say love is the law, they have something entirely different in mind, and it's not love. It's pretty much the opposite of love.
Yeah, rape and incest and abuse.
And pedophilia.
Okay, two things I want to mention. I thought, okay, let me back up just a tiny step. I want to digress for just a second. Regarding the 47th problem of Euclid, I thought it was interesting that one of the first things out of your mouth was that regarding the Masonic pin, which was the Pythagorean triangle. You mentioned the Mason right off the bat. I happen to know that 47 happens to be the degrees in which the compass is oriented on the main symbol for Freemasons.
Yep.
The square and the compass. The compass is set at 47 degrees, I understand.
Yes, it is.
And that's why, because it's another layered element that is in ritual magic, automatically producing the union of Osiris and Isis magically, celestially, and working to produce the concretion of Horus in this realm.
The other thing I thought was really intriguing when you identify the bicycle as being a vehicle for transiting time and dimensions. The word bicycle broken into two sections is bicycle, and a cycle being also known as a circle, which is a recurring. Everybody understands what a cycle is, right? It starts, it ends, it starts, it ends. The beginning is the ending, the alpha, the omega. A bicycle being bicycle, two cycles, we refer to cycles of time. And a bicycle would be two cycles of time, or an alternate time cycle. I just thought that was pretty, I don't know, I had a little epiphany. Maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, it made me think of something. You know, bicycle, that's two. So when you've got two wheels on a bicycle, you've got 360 degrees on one, you've got 360 degrees on the other. The 360 is an important number in the occult. And yeah, you got 720, and 72 is the number of goetic demons, and they're the gateway demons that control dimensional transit. So there's a whole nother layer to the bicycle that deals with dimensional transiting.
What kind of demons? Say that again.
Goetic, the Goetia.
Oh, okay. Goetic. Interesting. Oh, if you didn't know, you may know this, but I'll throw it out there. 72 is a really important occult number, particularly celestially, because our Earth is said to be on a 23.5-degree tilt. Our axis is tilted to the sun, and our axis goes around and revolves in a circle. We know this as the precession of the equinox. It takes 25,920 years to complete an entire precession of the equinox. And here's where the number 72 comes in. And by the way, this harkens to the 72 virgins. It's 72 years equals 1 degree of arc in terms of the precession of the equinox. Most people don't know that, but it takes 72 years for us to transit 1 degree of the celestial time clock, as it were.
Good observation.
Is that called the equestrial plane or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bob, look, I study a lot of ancient cultures, ancient history, ancient structures. In a lot of the ancient mythologies, and particularly the artwork of the Hindus and also the Egyptians, and I think the Chinese, if I'm not mistaken, some of their very, very old gods are portrayed as green. And I heard you mention in one of your videos that green is the color of Satan. Why? Why is green the color of Satan? Because I've always wondered, why are some of these gods depicted as green?
Yeah, Osiris is always depicted as green. And I don't know what the derivation on that is, but I learned it through Fritz Springmeyer's book on the Illuminati, on Illuminati programming. And he gives just a straight up report that green is the color of Satan. People think it's black, but it's really green. And that resonated with me, and I know he's right.
So are you familiar with the YouTuber known as Christopher Christopher Lord? His channel is Truth Heresy.
No.
You're not familiar with Truth Heresy?
No.
Okay, you might want to jot that one down. I think he does some great work, and I would be interested in hearing back from you later on and getting your take on what he's doing over there.
His channel now is Truth Heresy 3, because he's had a couple of channels taken down.
Yeah, so
that sounds familiar.
So the spelling is a mixture of conspiracy and truth. So it's Truth Heresy
3.
Truth Heresy 3.
Okay.
And one of the things that he breaks down in terms of particularly the color green is a pagan reference to springtime. he does a lot of work breaking down movies as well in terms of the astrological aspects of the symbolism embedded in movies, media, theater. I'll give you an example. Let's see. He does a lot of work on Dorothy the Wizard of Oz, the Red Door, the Emerald Castle. He identifies the characters, similar to the way you do. Different identifications, though. Okay, you know, you'll identify, for instance, the goddess Isis, and you'll identify a lot of these esoteric entities and gods and beings. He does it in a way that really, and it makes probably a little bit too much sense. And when I say too much, I mean just simply a lot. I don't mean too much. It just makes a lot of sense. The symbolism refers to the time scale of basically the yearly cycle from winter to summer, winter to spring to summer to fall, back to winter. So, gosh, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I got 5 or 10 things in my head right now. Pardon me. I'm trying to remember one really specific that I can speak with a little more knowledge than just trying to guess. Not just The Wizard of Oz, some of the other movies I'm trying to think of. Pardon me for the dead airspace here. I'll give you an example. The Johnny Depp movie, Alice in Wonderland, which is heavily encoded esoterically on many, many layers. The White Queen is obviously winter. The Red Queen is obviously summer. Alice herself represents, I think, springtime, the growing season. And let me see, who was the other character that represents the fall? I think it's the Johnny Depp character. I think it's the Mad Hatter. But nevertheless, do me a favor, just jot down that name, go have a look, and when you get a chance, just get back to me, send me an email or something. I'm really interested on your take on how he breaks things down over there.
Okay, I got a note here.
Okay, so all right, at this point, it's probably appropriate to go deep. What I want to do, and I'm not ready yet. I have to queue this up. I've got one ready, and I've got to get another one ready to go. I'm going to go to your channel, and I'm going to. There's a video I want to pull up. It's time travel and sodomite programming in film and TV, Part 4, The Lake House. I want to talk about that particular video of yours. Any one of your videos is worth commenting on, by the way. I could just grab any one at random. They're startling, the stuff that you uncover. So let me just type this in. Pardon me again for the delay. Time travel and so do me a favor, Bob. While I'm working on this, tell me how you got into this decoding of the sodomite programming. I know you do a lot of work on MK Ultra programming, sex kitten, mind control programming. You're really amazing at spotting things that everybody else seems to miss. How did you get started on all this, especially the creepy, dark stuff? How did you get started on that?
It's pretty much all kind of creepy dark, isn't it? You know, I don't remember exactly what it was that tipped me off to it, but I read some interviews and I read some testimonies of people who had been slaves and, you know, in the Illuminati slave business. And I was married to an Illuminati slave for 15 years, and I didn't know it until several years after.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it was like all the things that I had seen that I really had no explanation for, all of a sudden the day came when it made perfect sense, and the testimony that I had matched the testimonies exactly of everybody else who'd experienced being around these people. And what I came to see was that in Marion Knox's interviews, for example, he's a farmer in Oregon, he would be very open about the kind of things that he would learn from his deprogramming experiences, where the slaves would come to him and they would give him testimony. And he was speaking very openly about the role that ritual sodomy played in this whole business. And I knew it was true. I've actually talked to Marion Knox for several hours and on a number of different occasions. And he knows what he's talking about. And because I'd already been decoding the symbolism, when I began to understand how important this was, how fundamental it was to the programming of a slave, I began to see this in the symbolic language over and over again. And I began to produce this series called Sodomite Gateway, which you're probably very familiar with.
Yes.
And in the process, you know, at one point after 100 and some odd, I decided, you know, there's so much crossover that it just doesn't make sense to keep adding to that. So, you know, if you want to add up all the videos and all the posts I've done since then that kind of fit, well, there'd be hundreds and hundreds, because it's a very dominant theme. And I've discovered a lot about what else is involved because of the things that they associate in this language. You know, when you learn a language, you learn what's important to them because they repeat it over and over and over. You discover what role it has, what things are associated with it. This is really a fundamental. It kind of is the fundamental that really opens everything else up.
Okay, so I've got this queued up. Do a screen share, and hopefully the disabling of my screen share is over. That was last week. Hopefully it's not going to bleed into this week. Let's try. And okay, I'm going to get to do it this time. All right. I would like to share your video. This is called Time Travel and Sodomite Programming in Film and TV, Part 4. This is a breakdown of the Lake House movie with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock, 2006 movie. I've got it queued up at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. And I just want to remind people, this is the part of the show where you want to get the kids out of here. And I'm going to tell you right now, get them out, because this is some nasty stuff. The overwhelming number of references to sodomy that Bob has uncovered are disturbing, to say the least. And I'll just leave it there. I'm going to play this from 5 minutes and 30 seconds up to about 12 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about this. Check this out, you guys, and let me know if the audio comes through, and if it's not coming through, let me know.
I'm a magical wormhole or Stargate mechanism. Items put inside may be either picked up in one time or the other.
Can you hear okay?
The pole it's mounted on is a pillar or pedestal, which is a Stargate metaphor. This commonplace object is a butt metaphor.
Can you guys hear that okay? Everybody's quiet. What happened?
I had my microphone muted because it was echoing a little bit.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that you could hear this, the audio coming through.
It's a little low, but you can hear it.
Okay. All right. So go ahead and mute again so we don't get the echo. I'm going to go ahead and start this, see if I can back it up just a couple of seconds. I just want to make sure the audio was good. And this is disturbing stuff, guys, so pay attention. Here we go. As soon as it buffers.
Special mailbox at the lake house. It functions as a link through time, a magical wormhole or Stargate mechanism. Items put inside may be either picked up in one time or the other. The pole it's mounted on is a pillar or pedestal, which is a Stargate metaphor. This commonplace object is a butt metaphor that we've seen employed elsewhere. like in The Penitent Man, for example. Here's the gimmick. Think of the male gender, a homonym of the word spelled M-A-I-L. A male, M-A-L-E, box is the same thing as a manhole in symbol. The mailbox at the lake house is a butthole time machine. There's no water inside like the hot tub time machine, but it's at the lake. So the water as time metaphor is definitely in play. The old mailbox is not as stylish as a DeLorean with a butt modeling flux capacitor, but it gets the job done all the same. This simple homonym gimmick of the butthole time machine is what the entire plot revolves around. Alex and Kate's relationship is begun and developed through the agency of the M-A-L-E box, the butt. This romantic drama is a love story, and on the esoteric level, it's all about the sodomite love. The mailbox is mounted on a pole, which is to say, the male gender box that is the butt is mounted on a phallus. It's the picture of sodomy. Another phallic symbol is the red flag that goes erect. Up and down it goes, sometimes with a helping hand. This phallus is red, suggesting the rough sodomy of the bloody initiation ritual. At one point in the film, the mailbox is opened and a red scarf comes flying out, like a bloody stream. Red is the goddess color. The supporting pole is a pillar that is another goddess image. Her presence is an essential element in these expressive rituals. Here's some imagery that's very revealing. Looking out from inside the mailbox, the form of a square combined with a circle at the opening is made very obvious. It's the Royal Arch of Freemasonry, or Royal Arse, you might say, because this is the ubiquitous architectural form of the sodomite gateway. Alex and his brother are architects, like their father who designed and built the lake house. Freemasons are all about architecture and building, honoring Lucifer, whom they sometimes refer to as the grand architect of the universe. They're all about squaring the circle. This expression references both sodomy and the exercise of control over space-time dimensions. One secret identity of the mysterious dog that spans both time periods is that of the dog-headed psychopath Anubis. He's also known as Hermanubis, Hermes and Mercury. The word dog backwards is God. The dog is female, but her name is Jack. Think hermaphrodite. A dog in slang is a male prostitute. Jack has another secret identity as the dog star Sirius, the blazing star of Freemasonry and the light behind the sun. For those who embrace theosophy, the dog star is a transmission portal. Sirius is a dual star, and the dog star is the gateway to the Sirius B dimension. The breed of dog makes Jack look like she might be second cousin to the dog who played a similar role in The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy Gale went over the rainbow and back with her beloved Toto as something of an escort. Name droppers, Toto, the O-T-O. As for Jack's role, she acts as a facilitator of Alex and Kate's relationship. In one scene, Jack runs off and Alex chases her across a bridge over a river, where we see a waterfall. That's time travel and sodomite mind control imagery. Jack leads Alex to a house on the other side of the river where he meets Kate's friend, and then later that same day, Kate herself had a surprise birthday party in her honor. There's so much occult symbolism surrounding all this. The lake house is like the mailbox in that it combines the imagery of space-time with sodomite mind control programming. The house rests on poles, like the mailbox is on a pole. The house sits over the water. There's a striking visual in one scene where the mailbox appears over the water. With water as time, this places them in an esoteric sense outside of the referential frame of time. They represent heavenly domains that are above or beyond time. Perhaps the most striking feature of the lake house is that it's like a greenhouse, in that the walls are actually windows. There's an embedding here of the three-letter word for butt. It's a glass house, G-L-A-S-S. That architectural style was known as the box house, box, like the male MALE box, a glass box. So the lake house on poles is a sodomized butt, just like how the mailbox on a pole is a sodomized butt. The lake house has a tree inside, and one can and should see this tree made of wood as a woody. A woody is slang for an erect penis. So in symbol, the tree inside the lake house is a woody inside a glass box, and that's what sodomy is. This is above the lake, again presenting the space-time and sodomite combination that is our focus of attention in this video series. Now, we're told that this tree is a maple, and this kind is the source of maple syrup and maple sugar. The way they harvest this tree's valuable sap is by tapping the trunk. Think about it. Tapping the trunk is the language of sodomy. The trunk is like with the trunk of a car, the rear end. To tap it is to have sex with it.
This world is full of exit ramps. It's the road.
The maple tree signals the tapping of the trunk, and this is inside the glass box over the water is time, with the magical time warping MALE box as a link with the other world. This kind of redundancy doesn't just happen by accident. It's been planned and executed with expertise. It's the evidence of theurgy. To get to and from the house, more excrement and butt sex modeling is involved, and time symbolism. The lake house and its mailbox are at the end of a dirt road. The dirt road is slang for the rectum in the context of butt sex. Both Alex and Kate drive vintage vehicles from the era of the house, the mid-60s. The featuring of vintage cars emphasizes the passage of time. Their vehicles present us with suitable, esoteric imagery for them to drive up and down the dirt road when accessing the mailbox in the lake house in their sodomite time warp comings and goings. Alex drives a pickup truck. If you remember the breakdown of the lyrics of the Time Warp song in the second Rocky Horror Picture Show video, you know what this means. The top hat wearing Columbia told her story about a snake of a guy who had a pickup truck, making reference to her sodomizing handler. The thing about a pickup truck is that you put a load in the back. That's code for the act of sodomy, where a load of semen is delivered in the back or butt. Alex drives his pickup truck with a load in the back up and down the dirt road. Kate drives her poop brown Mustang up and down that dirt road. The Ford Mustang she drives is the original pony car. A pony is a little horse. The word horse sounds like Horus. That's the name of the sun god and offspring of Osiris and Isis. A pony is therefore a little Horus, Harpocrates. The anus is sometimes known as the horse eye, and it's also known as the pony eye. Riding the pony is slang for sodomy. Jack the dog, or male prostitute, rides the pony with her, and Jack is also Alex's escort as they ride up and down the dirt road, to and from the glass box with the woody inside it, to and from the MALE box mounted on an erect shaft. That's a lot of redundancy. The sodomite layering functions as a cloak that obscures. You see how that works? The decoding of the symbolism brings it into view. This layer is woven together with the time and space imagery, serving to cloak that as well. There is that obvious time warp aspect that is the main plot device, and there's that occult layer that is their expression of the worship of their ancient gods. This is where the mind control programming happens.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. I went a little bit over time, but that's okay because, I mean, the breakdown is really amazing. There's several things I want to discuss, but I'll give you guys a chance to pipe up if you like.
Well, all I can say is that it's just amazing how many things can be put into one bit of footage.
Yeah, one
You
presentation.
know, I mean, it just
Yeah.
blows my mind.
There's so much packed into that one, you know, even in the little segments that we watched. I mean, if you watch the whole movie,
Yep.
and there's your green truck again too, right? Right, Stormy?
Well,
That's
and
your
I
green,
noticed
that's your green color right there, the truck.
where Reeves was coming up over a hill, and behind him are two green pillars. And I thought, I bet that has some meaning in there
Yeah, it's funny
somewhere.
that you mentioned that earlier, right? So yeah,
Yep.
I mean, there is a lot to soak in there. It's more than a coincidence that it just seems to work out like that, right?
Takes a lot of really sacrifice, literally blood sacrifice, to pull ritual together that actually makes that work. This isn't just a bunch of clever people, you know, scheming and conniving and being real sneaky and clever. It's
No, it can't possibly be, because
No.
it's in every movie, it's in every cartoon, every sitcom. Many, if not most, are all commercials. It's layered in song. It's layered in theater. It's layered in just, you know, TV shows, movies, you name it. It's everywhere. And here's
Even in wrestling and everything.
here's the thing, Bob, that I really grappled with this for a long time. Like I said off air to you, that I've been watching your channel for a long time, a couple of years. And at first it was striking. It was eye-opening. It was startling to see you break this stuff down this way. And then after continuing to watch your channel and to continue to watch video after video breaking down all these movies again and again, I watched the entire Back to the Future series that you have. I think it's 8 or 9 or 10 parts.
9.
Just remarkable. And like you said in this video that I shared, the redundancy, it's overwhelming. It's striking. So after a while, I started to think, and a little bit sarcasm, little tongue in cheek, I started to I was wondering, I asked myself, well, maybe he's the guy with the obsession, you know, maybe he's the guy with the fetish. He's just, you know, you've heard the statement, if you look for it, you'll find it. But this is, I mean, you have pointed out and I've watched enough of your videos to know, you've pointed out so many freaking examples that this goes above and beyond someone with a YouTube channel who has a fetish. This is not the case. You have a remarkable ability to see things that a lot of people overlook, and like you said, the redundancy is overwhelming. It can't possibly be just somebody looking for these things and just making them up. Plus, add to that the knowledge that we have of the occult and what kind of sick fucking bastards they are, knowing that they're traffickers of children, molesters of children, murderers, rapists, liars, and thieves. We know this. And so add that to the knowledge. When I'm watching your videos, I'm thinking, there's just no way. This is the deal. This is what they're hiding. It's not a creepy guy on YouTube with a fetish. This is fucking sick shit that we're being injected with and propagandized on in every level and every time you turn on your TV or radio, for that matter. So, okay, so let me ask you this. Why, you mentioned the sodomite gateway. What's the gateway portion of this? Why sodomite gateway? What's happening to create a gateway with sodomy, and why? And why sodomy and why gateway? What's the connection?
well, what ritual sodomy does is it stimulates what they call the Kundalini gland, and it's kind of a pathway, a nerve pathway, or a kind of a supernatural pathway to the pineal gland. And so this pineal activation takes place. And what it does is it creates a portal. It's a dimensional portal that's internal. It's a biological thing. And with this ritual sodomy, they're exploiting that and opening the third eye. That's what they call it. And this is what illumination is. This is Luciferian illumination. When you have your pineal gland stimulated, this Kundalini enlightenment, call it a lot of different things, your third eye open. This is a pathway to the divine. And this has been exploited for thousands of years. And it works. And there is no substitute for that. And so people talk about entheogenics, you know, about drugs, DMT, and the shamanic realm. And that's one way to exploit it, but it doesn't create the same situation. It doesn't have the same value as what they accomplished through the means of ritual sodomy. And when I say ritual sodomy, this is not just repeated sodomizing. There's an actual ritual involved that has to do with the invitation of the gods that are worshipped. It's a Luciferian thing. And, you know, there's a lot of different names that these things go by. But basically, it has to do with invoking these beings from another realm. And they install themselves through this process of ritual sodomy. One of the things that you'll find being talked about is Illuminati initiation or Illuminati initiation rites. And this is something that goes beyond just making a promise or cutting your finger and signing your name in blood. This is something that on some level involves this ritual sodomy. And this is very common to all the Illuminati organizations, all the splinter groups, the royals, the elites, the Hollywood insiders, your next door neighbors, perhaps, your brothers and sisters, your mothers and fathers, your sons and daughters. They're, as Fritz Springmeier says, they're undetectable. And there are certain tells that they have that give them away. But they all have this ritual sodomy thing in common. And through means of this ritual sodomy, it creates a bond and a loyalty that is very substantial. Unless something is done to remove the root of this, it lasts a lifetime. And what it does is it bonds the victim to the abuser and their institution. It's a twofold bond. And this is more than just a loyalty that says, oh, we'll be friends forever. This is a kind of loyalty that has to do with slavery. It removes free will. It removes choice from the victim. It typically begins when they're around 3 years old with the sodomizing, sometimes earlier, but never later than 4, as I understand it, in order to generate the kind of result that they're looking for. Because the reason why they make slaves is not just so they have somebody who can do what they want them to do. They have slaves because these demonic installations create special powers that are, in most people's minds, impossible. But you know, when you look at the kind of things that we expose in videos like about the lake house, you know that these people don't come by these things because they're clever. They have special abilities, and they exploit these abilities in different ways. And the way that they got them is through ritual sodomy. And they use the symbolism of ritual sodomy for a number of reasons. And it's like a cover spell that's applied. The reason why everybody doesn't just see these things and go, well, that's too obvious, and avoid the pitfalls involved with being mind controlled. This is part of the mass hypnosis. It's part of the mechanism of manipulation. And it's been going on, like I say, for thousands of years. But now, in our day and time, with our environment being completely saturated with these symbols, we're mind controlled like at no other time in history because of these magical spells that are actually implicit in these symbols. And ritual sodomy has a key role in all of it. It's their big secret.
Wow. Okay. What about, okay, I'm going to bring this up. I got a pile of, questions for you just simply regarding that clip from your video that I played. One of the things that was pretty obvious to me, and this is not, look, I've been on to this, what I'm going to bring up in a moment about the name, the character Jack. This is something that I've been on to for a long time. And right now, everybody in the chat box is talking about the Jack character, the dog. And they did this on their own. I didn't even bring it up. But just so you know, I've got a pile of notes with just that name, Jack. Just for fun, a couple of weeks ago, I decided to do an esoteric breakdown of the movie Mrs. Peregrine's Home for Gifted Children, which is a creepy, weird, Harry Potter-esque kind of magical thing. There's a Jack character in that movie. Now, I did a breakdown a long time ago about Jack and how it relates to Jacob from the Bible. So the name John is also a name, it's another name for Jack. I mean, John F. Kennedy, all of his friends called him Jack, right? So we have the name Jake, we have the name Jack, we have the name John, and that are all related to, as far as I'm concerned, and you correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I'm concerned, they're all related to Jacob from the Bible. And that we have Jacob's ladder, we have Jack and the beanstalk, Jack and Jill went up the hill, we have Black Jack, we have Jack jumps over the candlestick, right? We have, there was a movie called Legend a long time ago with Tom Cruise played the lead role. His name was Jack. Tom Cruise again played in a movie called Oblivion. His name again was Jack. We have Jumpin' Jack Flash, the song Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Jack in the Box.
It just goes on. The list goes on and on. In fact,
You cut out there, Aaron.
Well, what happened?
people get fired up. They get jacked up.
Oh, you're back.
Jack and the Beanstalk. Jackass, Johnny says. Billy Jack Blue Blood says. Jack off. Colin James, he just said. Jack off. Union Jack, for crying out loud. Thank you, Dominic. What else do we have here? I mean, everybody's...
Our Jack.
Yeah, jack yourself off. Jack your body. Jack-o'-lantern. Michael Jackson. Jack the Ripper. Okay, there's another good one there. Jack-a-nori. That must be a UK thing. I don't know about that one, Dom. I never heard of it. Jack Bauer, the character. The movie. Forgive me. Who knows what that is? What movie was that? Jack Bauer and
Pirates of the Caribbean or something?
Wasn't Jack? Isn't Jack Bauer?
24 Hours.
24. Yeah, that's yeah. Kiefer Sutherland.
Pirates of the Caribbean was Jack too, wasn't it?
That's right. Pirates of the Caribbean. He was Jack. Thank you. Excellent.
Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher. That's right.
The Titanic, his name was Jack as well.
So okay, we could go on and on and on. There's a million Jacks in our lives here. So what the hell's going on with Jack? What do you know about it, Bob? What can you tell us?
Well, I think
you don't
you're
know.
right about
Shit, somebody just said. Plasma Burns. Hey, Plasma Burns. Sorry, Bob. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please go on.
Yeah, I think your insight connecting it to Jacob is good. And I think there's another level that has to do with being hijacked.
There's another good one. We have Jack Rabbit. Here they keep coming. Jack Sparrow. We mentioned that. Jackie O. Jack the Ripper. Jack and little ditty about Jack and Diane. Yes. Keep them coming, you guys. It's amazing. I can't think of everything. Jack of all trades. Plasma Burn says, you don't know jack shit.
Now, one of our guests mentioned Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack jump over a candlestick.
Yeah.
That's totally. How you feel about that one, Stormy?
Well, there's a commercial running on TV now that has to do with reading a book about Jack be nimble. I think it's an insurance commercial. And his pants are on fire. He jumps over the candle. And it's very much a ritual abuse thing. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, it's ritual abuse. He's hijacked.
Well, I mean, there's no shortage. Hey, there's Greatest Potential. Good to see you with us. Jack Black, the actor, musician. Jack Frost. Thank you, Dominic. Jack the Lad. That must be another British thing. Don't know that one. Jackal or Jackal, the band Jackal. I mean, there's no shortage of Jacks. there's no shortage of Jacks. So, and like I said, I equated it to be a reference to Jack or the Jacob of the Bible. So, go ahead, please.
That's all I've got on Jack.
Okay. I didn't know if you had any more insights on that.
I've noticed that they use jacks, the kind that you play jacks with. And
sure, the children's game, yep.
You spin the jack around in a circle.
Johnny says Cracker Jack.
Oh, you guys remember Sons of Anarchy? His name was Jax. They called him Jax. His name was Jax.
Wow.
Right.
Cracker Jack. I mean, there's no shortage. It's when you really start digging into how many Jacks there are in our lives, in our media, in our culture, it's overwhelming. It's real. And then just keep that in mind when you watch. And for everyone listening, keep that in mind next time you watch a movie. Notice how many times the character or somebody in the movie is named Jack, and then pay attention to what kind of character that is, what they're up to, and what they're about. That's really, really interesting. So, Bob, what is happening? Okay, you said that water is time. Water is a reference for time. I imagine because it flows. You can elaborate on that. But why, in the video that I played of yours, why is running over a bridge? The scene where the dog chases Keanu Reeves over the bridge. You said that's a reference to sodomite mind control. Explain to me, how was running over a bridge, a body of water, a river? How was running over a bridge a reference to sodomite mind control?
Well, running over the bridge, and we see in the background that the water is flowing, and the water is flowing down in a waterfall. And if you read Fritz Springmeier, you'll learn that the waterfall is a slave command. It's a trigger that means forget. So when you're a slave and you get the waterfall, that's a mind wipe. It's a memory wipe. So when he's running across the bridge, he ends up basically in a different world. He goes across and he meets up with this girl that he's been communicating with through the mailbox. And he's never met her in person until he follows Jack across the bridge, and he goes over and he finds her living at a house where she lived in that year, because they're actually 2 years apart. And he meets her and he dances with her, and then he goes back over the bridge. So it's a mind wipe, and with the water flowing and kind of breaking in the waterfall, there's a disconnect from this realm. It's a Stargate. It's a rainbow bridge that they go over, and the imagery there is Illuminati programming imagery.
Okay, thank you for that. I also want to point out that you mentioned the maple tree inside the house. I think you made an excellent reference that a tree is another word. It's a woody inside the glass box. Glass contains the name, and you didn't mention this in the video, and if you did, I missed it. Glass contains the name of the word ass, so you've got a woody in the glass box. But I wanted to point out, since it's a maple tree, to me, it's the maypole. To me, what I get is a reference to the maypole.
Yes.
which goes back a long time, right? This is an old pagan ritual. It's very, very old, more esoteric layers of meaning. So I just want to see what your thoughts are on the maypole being another reference by the maple tree.
That's a good insight. And it's a goddess reference because when they dance around the maypole, it's a goddess worship ritual.
It's also a fertility ritual, is it not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the May goddess, like the May Queen that Led Zeppelin sings about, the May Queen, the maypole is a celebration of fertility and the fertility goddess. And, you know, she's got many names, but, you know, that's valid. And one thing I didn't mention in those videos that I did, the lake where they filmed this is called Maple Lake. It's outside Chicago. So double emphasis on the maple identity. And you could say that, you know, the goddess is very much involved with the water symbolism as well. Like the myths of Avalon.
Wow. Good stuff, man. I don't even know what to add to that one. I mean, we could go in a million directions with, you know, Led Zeppelin is another, it's one of those bands that is just deeply embedded in the esoteric nature of media, especially considering that I heard, now my friend who is in the chat right now told me that Jimmy Page, this is the guy who bought Aleister Crowley's house. Jimmy Page, I hear, is a raging pedophile. Any knowledge to that? Have you guys heard that one?
No, I haven't heard.
I had heard something to that effect, but I don't have any data to necessarily corroborate that.
Is he even in public view still, or does he even do anything?
No, he's not. Not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Yeah, as far as I know, he's sort of faded into the distance there.
He does show up occasionally. I saw him in something about a month ago. He attended some event.
Oh, yeah.
This from Plasma Burns in the chat box. He says, the Urban Dictionary defines Jack as a very intellectual, insightful man with the most honest heart. His intentions and words are always well intended, and he has the sexiest eyes in the world. That's weird and interesting.
What sexiest? Where did that come from? Why would they put that in there? The sexiest eyes.
Well, this is the Urban Dictionary.
I don't know. But when I brought up Jimmy Page, Dominic said you hit the jackpot. So I just will throw out that other Whiskey Jack, and there's another one. The Jacks keep coming in the chat box. Thanks, guys. So okay, check this out. During the scene where you were talking about the dirt road, Keanu Reeves pulls up in his pickup truck. I noticed that the opening credits that said that this film was produced by, get this, Nathan Crowley.
I wonder if there's a relationship.
I wonder as well. I wonder as well. So if anybody in the chat box wants to look up some genealogy and let me know if Nathan Crowley, the director-producer, is related to Aleister Crowley, that would be a shocking revelation indeed. But you also, Bob, you made reference to the pony. Tell me about the pony.
Yeah, I pretty much laid it out right there. There's another set of blog posts that I did on Kesha's Crazy Kids, which is a music video. And there's a lot of decoding that goes on in that one. There's a scene where they're walking through this house, they're going down a hall, and we see into the bathroom, and there's a man with a lot of tattoos standing there with a little pony. And he looks like he's just come out of prison or just about to go in prison. And it's a very interesting thing because everybody knows the prison meme. You know, what do guys do in prison?
Sure.
So there he is with his pony. And it's all very telling. It just flows with the rest of the symbolism that's there. But the pony is like My Little Pony, like the little girl's doll.
Right, right.
Oh yeah.
That's what's going on there.
Yeah.
The pony eye, that's the Horus eye. That's the sodomite gateway, and they call it the pony eye.
Mm. Okay.
Interesting. You know what I was thinking of while I was watching that was the little girls, the toy called My Little Pony. You guys remember that one? This is 30 some years ago.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's still around as far as I know.
Oh, really? Why does that not surprise me? Really? Is it really still around? Is My Little Pony still around?
And
I don't think so.
they've made animated, I don't know, TV show or cartoons.
Yeah, cartoons.
Well, what I would like to do now, I think, is, and I'm trying to find it. Oh, let me see. Let me try to get through just a little bit of my breakdown of Mrs. Peregrine's. If you guys have not seen this movie, there's a psychiatrist in this movie. I think it's played by Samuel Jackson. And no, excuse me. The psychiatrist is, yes, it is. It's played by Samuel Jackson, who plays multiple characters. He's sort of in disguise. He's a psychiatrist, a female psychiatrist, and then later he transforms into his real self. And the psychiatrist's name is Mrs. Golan, Golan, N as in Nicholas. And I immediately thought Gollum, Golam, Gollum. What do you have any insights into? Because I'm not totally, you know, skilled at all this depth of knowledge. I've got some, but I just, you know, I'm one guy. What is a golem? Can you tell me what a golem is?
You're asking me?
Yes, sir. If anybody who knows, I mean, you or anybody, you're the guest and you're the man of the day. So if you know, tell me.
Well, a golem is a legendary being who is artificial in the life. They fashion him out of clay, and I believe it's history in Kabbalism and Judaism. And so they do ritual, and they give this clay figure life, and he's kind of a slave, and he can go about and do their dirty deeds for them without them getting their hands dirty or taking the risk themselves. That's typically what they're for.
Or getting the karma on themselves.
Right. That's how they distance themselves from it. And
So they
you know,
kind of
when you think of the Lord of the Rings, the Gollum character.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Smeagol. Yeah.
See, now this once again reminds me yet again of the Led Zeppelin, the band, the music of Led Zeppelin, because apparently they were into the works of, who was it, Tolkien?
Yeah. Big
So
time.
there, you know, in some of their lyrics, they emphasize, you know, the story of Tolkien, of the Lord of the Rings, which, by the way, Lord of the Rings, Saturn, we know this. So yeah, so, you know, while I'm trying to break down this movie, Mrs. Peregrine, and I didn't really get very far into it, but you know, the Gollum character definitely stuck out to me. The Jack character definitely stuck out to me. There's another aspect I want to see if you can maybe add to this. Just like in the movie Alice in Wonderland, if you guys remember, there's the scene where the two twins, in the recent one with Johnny Depp particularly, they're two young girls. They're wearing horizontal stripes. Okay, they're twins. They're dressed the same. They're both wearing horizontal stripes. And there's a scene. There's a birthday surprise party in this movie, Mrs. Peregrine's Home for Gifted Children. there's a surprise party where the character Jack, he walks in, he's swarmed by all the party goers, and he's approached by two twins. They're boys in this case, and they were also wearing horizontal stripes, just like in Alice in Wonderland. Do you have any insights into this? Twins wearing horizontal stripes. I mean, it's a reoccurring theme. Obviously, it was in Alice in Wonderland. It was definitely in Mrs. Peregrine's. It's a reoccurring theme. Just wondering if you can enlighten me or add to this at all.
I have a couple of ideas, and I can't really put the twins together with the two stripes just as I'm thinking about it, but twins typically have to do with this, what they call the celestial stargate, with the silver gate, because of the constellation Gemini. And yeah, and oftentimes, usually, I mean, almost always, what they're signaling with the stripes is the knowledge of good and evil.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
The black and white.
Well, that's fascinating.
I mean, I understand that to be the checkerboard. The black and white checkerboard on the Masonic floor is the representation of dark and light, good and evil.
The split personality.
The duality of
duality. Sorry, that's
Yeah, they do it also with stripes, and with a stark color scheme. A lot of times when they're using a black and white sequence in a movie, there's a highlight on the knowledge of good and evil. That's a very common signal. One of the things that stripes will also do, if it's a red and white stripe, it is often picturing what I call the divine sons of man, the daughters of man. In Genesis 6, it talks about the angels fell, and they took the women of earth as wives.
And they bore children.
Yeah, Nephilim. And it's the union of the sons of God with the daughters of men. And what that does is it makes the daughters of men divine. And ritual sodomy makes the daughters of men divine. So that's a red and white coded sequence. Sometimes they're in spirals, like a candy cane or a barber pole. But really, anytime you see the red and white striping in particular.
You know, while you were talking, I think I might have had an epiphany or two regarding the twins. The thing that came to my mind was the Masonic Jachin and Boaz, which are the two pillars. And the other thing harkens all the way back to the Roman mythology of Romulus and Remus. Anyone?
Well, I was thinking about Remus. That just popped into mind. I don't know why.
That in itself sounds subjective as well. Remus.
Yes.
That's suggestive.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me just wrap up this Mrs. Peregrine's breakdown. I've only got one other small paragraph to add to it. There's at the same party, the Jake character, his name is Jake, not Jack. He goes into a room. It's his bedroom. He wants to get away from everybody. And I noticed that on the wall there are what appear to be 5 or 6 posters and or images of manatees, otherwise known as the sea cow. So I'm wondering what the significance of that might have been, because again, the character's name, the main character, his name is Jake. There's tons and tons of symbolism throughout this movie. It's reminiscent of the Alice in Wonderland in many aspects. And then he goes into his room to be, you know, secluded away from all the party goers. And he's apparently that's his thing, or you know, it's his, you know, whatever, you know, we call it your freak, right? Whatever you like. You know, I'm a guitar player, so you'll see a lot of guitar stuff hanging on my walls around here. So, you know, that kind of thing. Apparently the kid is into manatees. I'm wondering if anybody has any insight as to what might be potential significance, if any? Okay, might be talking out my ass here, but just wondering.
I can't think of anything offhand, but that doesn't mean there's nothing there.
I mean,
We might be doing a word play on man-tease, like T-E-A-S-E. Depends on what else is going on in the context. That's a possibility.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, there were multiple. There were many of them, so it would have been plural, manatees. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, well, thanks for that. Let me see. I've got pretty much covered that, and that. Maypole, water is time. Tell me a little bit more about why water is a reference to time. So when we see water images in movies and whatever, or even in song, if we hear about it, why? Why is water a reference to time?
It's a biblical metaphor. It goes way back. And because it's a biblical metaphor, the occult have latched onto it, and they use this symbol. It's very widely exploited. My teammate here, Aaron Herman, he has a lot of kind of prophetic dreams, and he had one dealing with water as time, and it was a very key dream that we didn't understand at all. It made no sense to us. We weren't really onto the whole water is time thing for a while. But he heard a word displaced by water and time as a part of what was going on in the dream. And it made no sense to us until one day it suddenly did. And because of that insight, this was part of what unlocked the lake house for me. Because there are scenes where they've embedded the actual volume of the Ark of the Covenant in there. And the Ark of the Covenant is very, very tightly related to the water is time in the Bible. When they crossed over the River Jordan after the wandering in the wilderness that everybody knows about, they took the Ark, and the priests stopped in the middle of the Jordan at flood stage, and they held the Ark there, and everybody went around it onto the other side. And then there was a little ritual that they did with the stones, but this water is time thing had everything to do with the Ark of the Covenant as being a portable center of time as well. And so over and over again in the Bible, the water is time metaphor appears, and it's used in Illuminati programming as well. And it's used in so many of these movies that are really about water. So many times you'll see it, and it's kind of obvious once you get the water as time connection. They may be doing something on a river, and then it's like in the movie that I cover, FAQ about time travel. The guy goes into the men's room, and there's a leak, plumbing leak, and water's running across the floor, and he hops over the water stream, and it's like the river of time. All of a sudden, he's jumped into the future. And you see it when you understand, water is time, you'll see him do different things. And if there's some kind of a memory flashback that happens immediately, you'll know that this is connected. Or if there's actual time travel or some other kind of dimensional travel that's associated with the water, with the flow of water, with the crossing of water, you know that this is part of a ritual that they're doing on screen.
Interesting. You know, what you made me think of was the movie with Kurt Russell. Crap, the name just escapes me right now. Stargate. The Stargate that they discover when they finally figure out how to turn it on. It's the surface that you have to walk through when you go through the gate. It's very much like water. So
yes.
A reference, water being a portal. I understand water flows, time flows. So I don't know. That's pretty interesting.
Colin James McIntosh in the chat here put, the river of life flows from God's throne is why water is special.
Thank you, Colin. I just love it when our chat people, add to the conversation. I do love
And it could be, and that was my thought too. Water could represent semen, especially when you talk about the Olympics in London, where they actually did a sex ritual with the swimmers swimming up the Thames River. Thames, however you want to pronounce that.
Sort of like the spermatozoa.
And they all had their little caps on, right? So it looked like little sperm cells swimming up the river, the canal. And so swimming up the water canal to the womb. Right?
Okay, I've got a question here from Joanne Galvin in the chat. She says, what's the connection to obelisks and water?
Well, an obelisk is the phalanx.
And the water is the female. So the phallic, and you have the male and the female aspect. Like in Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument is set, and in between the Capitol building and the monument is that what's called the reflection pool. So I understand it, and Bob, you can add to it or correct me if you want to. I understand that to be the male and the female.
Yeah, the water is also ejaculate.
Yeah, like the semen. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's played up quite a bit in, as a metaphor in films, but it's also a biblical metaphor.
But also, when you think about giving birth, your water breaks and the baby comes out through,
Yeah, and on that note, Cleo Seeker in the chat room, she says the moon controls the tides, which is interesting as well, because the moon is also a reference to the feminine. The moon also controls menstrual cycles. So the moon is a goddess. It's a female goddess. Moon controls tides, which is water, which is a female. Water is female.
Diana is the moon goddess.
I might point out that not always is the moon considered a goddess. In the Shinto perspective of things, the sun is the goddess and the moon is the god. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Allah is also a moon god.
Who is?
Allah.
Allah?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because Islam, one of their main symbols is the crescent moon. Interesting.
But the moon is primarily a goddess symbol, as it's used in many aspects. And, every time there's an eclipse, which is a really big event for occult ritual, it's a sex ritual. It's ritual sex magic, because whether it's a solar eclipse where the female covers the male, the female moon covers the male sun, or a lunar eclipse,
Interesting.
sex ritual.
I took a vacation many years ago, and we went to the Vatican. We went to Rome and visited Rome and Florence. While we were in Rome, we did the St. Peter's Basilica. We did the Vatican Museum, which, by the way, is a 4-mile museum of hallway. The hallway is in total, when you enter, there's no way out but to go all the way through, and it's 4 miles of artwork. And it's overwhelming. I mean, it's good and it's bad, because it's like, holy shit, I got to get out of here, and you don't have time to really absorb any of it. You've seen so much. It's like, too much. But one of the things I wanted to point out was I looked at 4 miles of artwork in the Vatican, and tons of old artwork depicting, Christ and Mary and statues and tons of oil paintings. And almost always, and I pointed this out to Nancy when we were there, I said, look under her feet. There's a very, very thin crescent moon under Mary's feet almost every time. It was remarkable. So in Christianity, Mary is the moon goddess.
Yeah. Christianity is hijacked Isis and all the other goddesses, and they're all kind of rolled up into one. Yeah, Mary usually is pictured with the moon because she is the queen of heaven, which is a title for Isis.
Yes.
And Inanna, Ishtar.
Ninurta. Aphrodite.
Hmm.
What else are we missing?
Hecate.
All right, I tell you what I want to do now. I want to play a segment of one of your videos here. In fact, probably two of them. We're coming up on our second hour, just 10 minutes past the top of the second hour. This is Back to the Future Part 2. This is your breakdown now. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll just let it play for a few minutes, and then we'll just talk about some of the stuff that you uncover in this. This is Part 2 of... let me get my screen share so everybody can see exactly the video. It's all recorded. Ta-da. Screen share. Thank you. Full screen. Oops. Let me undo that. All right, just get this on here. All right, so this is back on your channel. This is What is Back to the Future Really About, Part 2, Doc Brown's Secret Identity. Check this out. This is weird stuff here. And by the way, before we even go any further, Doc Brown, need I say more? All right, so I'll let this play for a few minutes. Check this out, guys.
To know what Back to the Future is really about on a deeper level, it helps if you can interpret the symbols and grasp the reasons why they appear. 3 primary layers of symbolism here are: 1. Space-time and its mastery, with special attention given to transits. 2. Trauma-based mind control of the SRA-DID kind that involves ritual abuse and sodomy. 3. The legendary conflict between Kronos and Zeus. In this video, I'm going to begin decoding one of Doc Brown's secret identities, making some comparisons to the animated films Wreck-It Ralph and Rango, where the same clever symbols are employed. The names of the main characters serve these primary themes well. Remember, a secret of Dr. Brown's space-time identities and how his first name, spelled backwards, is similar to the word time. The name Emmett, spelled backwards, is like time. T-I-M-E, time, spelled backwards, is actually the word emit, which means to discharge. And this observation unlocks the secret of another identity. Emit Brown. Emit or discharge Brown. Boop. Dr. Defecation. Doc Emit Brown. Here's a clip that highlights the connection between manure and the color brown. Why does Goldie Wilson run over to the manure after Biff and his boys crash into it and get dumped on? Because he's the brown guy. It's not racism so much as colorism. He and the manure are both brown. This kind of subliminal binding strengthens the Doc Emit Brown as defecation identification. Even Doc Brown's dog plays on this base level. His name is Einstein. Sometimes Doc calls him Einie, and it sounds like Heine, which is slang for a butt. A dog is a reference to a male prostitute. And since he's Doc Brown's frequent companion and escort, well, that suggests something about his sodomite sexual practices that fits with the other symbolic imagery. By having a dog travel in the time machine, they demonstrate the role of a psychopath. Anubis, Hermanubis, Sirius, the dog star. That identity plays on the level of the time travel as dimensional transit. A secret of Marty McFly's space-time identity is in how his name sounds like the French word for Tuesday, the third day of the week. Marty, M-A-R-D-I. He plays the role of Hades to Doc Brown's Zeus in the Zeus v. Kronos layer, an identification you'll find being strengthened throughout the trilogy if you listen closely for when and how the word hell is mentioned. Hades means hell, and he is the god of the underworld. The secret of Marty's other identity is discovered in recognizing the archaic word for excrement, Mard, M-A-R-D, or M-E-R-D. He's Marty, Poopy. In Back to the Future 3, Biff's ancestor Buford calls Marty a gutless yellow turd, because that's his secret identity.
You know what I think? I think you ain't nothing but a gutless yellow turd.
Marty McFly. Flies and poop certainly go together. Here's an example of how the 1955 Doc Emmett Brown is played up as Doc Emmett Poop.
Hey kids, what time is it? Duty time.
Here's a related clip from Wreck-It Ralph.
It's not a coin. It is a medal.
Coin, medal, whatever. Just go back to your own dumb game and win another one.
I can't. I didn't win it in my game. I won it in Hero's Duty.
Hero's duty?
It's not that kind of duty.
I bet you really gotta watch where you step in a game called Hero's Duty. What you win the medal for? Wiping? I hope you washed your hands after you handled that medal.
Listen.
One more. Why did the hero flush the toilet? Say why.
Why?
Because it was his duty.
How dare you insult Hero's Duty, you little gutter snipe?
Now, here's a clip from a film where we're not being let in on the potty joke in any obvious way, because if you don't catch on to what is meant, the joke's on you.
I just wanted to pause this right there because what's being missed are the phallic symbols in the background.
On the potty joke in any obvious way, because if you don't catch on to what is meant, the joke's on you.
Sure, thank you, Byron.
Oh, you get that?
Hold it right there. Here, get them hands up where I can see them. Just as I suspected. Prospecting without the authorized equipment. Don't move a muscle. Now, you got your shovel, pickaxe, Benadryl, loofah, assorted snacks, some puzzle books, and you're going to need a permit.
Get your scared eye. What the Sam Hill's going on up there? I've had columns removed smarter than the two of you. Bar, this ain't the back. The sheriff is standing right here, helping us out.
Would give us a permit, a prospecting.
That's right, sir. Just doing my duty. The lonely constable on his rounds, keeping an eagle eye out for mayhem and malfeasance.
Where does one use a loofah? But in the bathroom. Rango squatting in the pile, just doing his duty.
Howdy, duty time. Just doing my duty. Howdy, duty time. Just doing my duty.
I bet you really gotta watch where you step in a game called Hero's Duty. What you win the medal for? Wiping?
Hey, kids, what time is it?
Pretty obvious, right? I'll return to those clips from Rango and Wreck-It Ralph to explain more of the symbolism, but let's take another look at Doc Brown's Howdy Doody time. Watch Doc run as if he's in a big hurry to get to the bathroom.
Hey, kids, what time is it? Howdy, duty time.
Great Scott! Scott Tissue has been the biggest name in toilet paper for a very long time.
All right, I'll stop it there.
Yeah, there's a fair few references, I would say.
Yep, Doc Brown wakes up to Howdy Doody time and he says, "Great Scott."
Yep.
So Bob, I imagine that you're familiar with the term known as homophones?
Homophones.
Yes, sir, homophone. Homophone is a set of words that are spelled differently but pronounced the same.
Ah, yes.
And when one is heard it is a phenomenon called mental priming. So if I was to say to you, I want to stare at the wall, or I want to stare down a hallway. When I say the word stare, your mind automatically equates the two words stare as in to look at something, or stare as in steps or staircase. And then your brain has to figure out which one is relevant. And it's a form of mind control. I actually have a video on my channel. It's a much older video, one I uploaded a year ago, on homophones. There's a guy, I forget which college, he did his doctoral thesis on homophones, and then he went on to be some advertising executive. And so I just wanted to get you, see if you were familiar with that terminology.
There's another word for it too, and this is really a technique that's also discussed as neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. And it's a form of manipulative mind control. It's also how stage magicians hypnotize their audience. NLP is like everywhere. You make a good point bringing it up. Certainly with Howdy Doody, you've got to have that out there. Just doing my duty. That Rango scene just always gives me.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sounds like Amy wanted to say something. Somebody's microphone just came unmuted. Go ahead, Amy.
I was just going to agree. Nothing, like, yes, howdy doody, and the frog doing his duty.
While the other critters were turtle heading out of the manhole.
Yes, yes.
In the middle of the dirt road.
Yeah.
Yep.
We warned you. The show is going down in a different kind of path tonight.
We're going down a dark dirt road.
I thought you were going to say we're going down the toilet.
It all works, Amy. It all works.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I think it does.
I thought it was very interesting, your Lois Lane and what was the other one's name?
Lana Lang.
Lana Lang's, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up, Ian. It was really on my mind. So, Bob, you had something to say, and then we can go to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that part of the video where Doc says, "Great, Scott," and then he rushes off. On the way, that was Marty sleeping, and he had his feet on that fancy skateboard that hovers, the hoverboard.
Yeah.
And
right.
When Doc went by, he knocked it out from under his feet. And because he had his feet on it, it was a footstool. And when he knocked it out from under his feet, on his rush over to Howdy Doody time, he dislodged a stool.
There's a question in the chat.
Yep. Go ahead,
Colin James McIntosh asks, ask your guest why 17, please.
This is something that I meant to ask you in the very opening of the show, Bob. I wanted to ask how you got the name 17Stormy17. Why 17Stormy17? Why the double 17? What's the significance of the number? So go ahead and tell us about that.
Well, at the time when I signed up, I tried 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, a whole bunch of different names that I wanted for my channel, and they were all taken. So I was frustrated, and I thought, okay, well, let's try this. And I used the car number for my favorite race car driver, Matt Kenseth, who was driving the 17 car at the time. And I used my own car's name, which I had a little gray Miata, and the name of that car was Stormy. So I put it together, 17Stormy17, put it in, and it worked. So I've kept it. And That's the big secret.
Really, nothing major secret behind that.
My favorite race car driver and my car, and it's actually the number I gave my car. I used to do track days in it. I take it to the racetrack and drive it around for fun and stick a big 17 on the side. So it's just for fun. It's nothing really more significant than that.
So it's not a 17-17 88HH combination? No, just kidding.
Hey, that's a fair question, Ian, because it is. It's a 1 + 7 and a 1 + 7. It's an 88.
It is that. Yeah, at the time I knew nothing of 88s or any of this other stuff. I've had that channel a long time, and the reason why I've kept it as my identity there is because of that one viral video that I had, because it's kind of an identification there. So I just figured, well,
Right.
let it ride.
Yeah, it's kind of like my eye, you know. I painted that, oh gosh, 2 decades ago at least. And you know, I was representing the eye of consciousness, not having any clue about the stuff I have a clue about now. And I made it so it tiles to create the field of consciousness. And of course, everybody sees it and gets the wrong idea.
Yeah, somebody was trying to debunk my avatar one day too. They're saying, "Oh yeah, Gemini, the twins, and 69 is the, you know, all that." And I'm saying, no, I'm born in June. My last name's McIntosh with MC spelled, and you know, and I was born in 1969. So that's.
Well, we're all shills because I've got
Yes.
I've got a Mayan pyramid, and
That's it.
Yeah, we're all shills around here.
Illuminati confirmed all the way across the board.
Yeah, all the way across.
but, you know, that is an interesting. It's an interesting channel name, 17Stormy17. The only other channel on YouTube that I've ever seen that even, you know, associates in any way is 108 Morris 108. It's just a strange, to me, it's just a little bit of a weird way to create a channel name with a number, a name, and then that same repeated number. And I've only seen that one other time with 108 Morris. So, okay, it was a fair question, and it's something I wanted to ask. So there's your answer. Pardon me, Colin, that's who asked, I think. Was it Colin?
Yes,
yeah.
I believe it was.
Hey, here's something almost completely off topic, and I don't want to derail the conversation. I'll just throw this out there for a quick laugh. I learned today that Miley Cyrus bought a new piece of property. I guess she paid like $5 million for it or something. But guess how many acres are on this piece of property?
33.
Damn right. Just like the number of people watching right now. Illuminati confirmed.
Woohoo! Illuminati confirmed. Yeah, again.
So you were mentioning the Superman video.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would think after all these years that somebody would have figured that out, right?
You'd think.
I mean,
Yeah, you'd think.
it's been going on forever.
Well, first of all, I was shocked. I didn't know that Superman had another girlfriend besides Lois Lane. That's something not a lot of people know.
Yeah, just elaborate on that whole thing.
So we've got 2 double L's. We got Lois Lane and Lana Lang. Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead and tell us about that.
Well, the backstory of Superman is very esoteric. The 2 guys that created it used names like Jor-El and all these other L names. So they're takeoffs on Hebrew. And you mentioned, you know, Jack, connecting it to Jacob. And, you know, in the Temple of Freemasonry, they use the pillars, Jachin and Boaz, from the Temple of Solomon, and there's a lot going on with the connections to the Hebrews. And so with this story, I mean, here's a guy, Superman, he's a baby born on another planet, the planet's destroyed, they put him in a rocket ship, send him to Earth, and then he grows up on Earth and he's got superpowers. Well, in the biblical story, who falls from heaven? It's Lucifer.
Yep.
And he's pictured as a dragon or serpent. And
Yep.
what is Superman's iconic symbol? It's this S that's got a serpentine eye. It's a serpent.
Yeah.
And what does he do? What's his most kind of flamboyant power? He flies, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And so who's the flying serpent? It's Amaru, it's Kukulkan, it's
Quetzalcoatl.
yeah, that's the flying
Yeah.
serpent.
Yeah.
And so here's the fallen angel who's the flying serpent, and he's got superpowers. He's illuminated, and this is a very common metaphor. I don't know what kind of help those guys had when they put this thing together, but they had help, supernatural help probably. And so when they pick the names of his girlfriends, these are the loves of his life. And so, you know, when you understand what's really important to the illuminated people and understand, you know, that they use these deep, profound spiritual metaphors that most people don't get, and you're not really looking for it. You know, these are comic books. Who cares, right? It's just for fun. But
Right.
but it's very profound, and so these names, and the elite occultists really like anagrams. They like words especially that are backwards. They're always doing plays on words, homophones, any way to encrypt and embed, to conceal, to obfuscate, to tell the story in 1,000 different ways, but the same story. And so what they're telling about Superman is that he is a sodomite, because Lois is an anagram for soil. And a soil lane is a dirt road, it's a rectum. So that's his number one love. And to confirm it, you look at the name of his first love, Lana Lang, and Lana spelled backwards, or Lana spelled backwards, is A-N-A-L. And Lang, if you spell it backwards, it's G-N-A-L. You could say canal or canal. So Lana Lang is the anal canal. You got the dirt road and the anal canal.
Wow.
And, you know, it seems kind of obvious because it's not really rocket science, but there it is. You know, it's been hidden in plain sight all these years. And at some point, you really got to ask yourself, you know, how is it that these things can just go hidden in plain sight, even being so obvious?
Well, except they're not that obvious. You know, Lois is a girl's name, and Lane is a last name people have, and most people don't think in the deeper terms. They just see Lois and Lang and Lane and go, you know, and Lana is another female name that girls are named.
But
And
this comes back to your Aleister Crowley teachings, where they have to learn to read backwards, spell backwards, do all these things in reverse. Right?
And speaking of spell backwards, the word spell, which is the word we use to describe how we lay out our words with our letters, it's also the word that witches use to cast a magical spell. And so, you know, the subject we're talking about is, in fact, decoding the spell of spelling.
Yep.
It's magical.
It is magical. And, you know, on that subject, I'll mention that as a musician, I've mentioned this before, and I'm sorry if you guys are tired of hearing it, but as a musician, I've been on many stages, and I understand very fully into the deepest core of my being the true essence of, for lack of a better word, magic. When people are focused on you, when you have an audience, it could be one person, it could be 3,000 or 10,000, or if you're on television, you've got millions of people focusing, like you break down, you know, the opening, closing ceremonies of the Super Bowl and the Olympic Games, where potentially hundreds of millions of people around the world are watching. This is a form of ritual magic. It's a way of getting the conscious minds of those that are watching to focus their mental energy on the same thing, on the same frequency, in order to bring about or manifest whatever it is that they want to manifest. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yep.
So
this energy is legitimate, and this energy is very important. You know, I look at your pyramid, and you probably saw my pyramid videos.
I'm afraid I haven't. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to pretend like I have, and then not be able to speak on it, because I'm just sorry I have not seen them. But I have every intention. You've got a lot of material, and there's only so much time in a day.
There's a lot of material there.
Yeah, I started watching your videos, and I was overwhelmed with the amount you have on there.
Yeah, there's really.
Yes,
and you know what, Bob? Your videos are the kind of videos where I have to stop, pause, take notes, rewind, watch again. So you do have a lot of material. So I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen them. So just go ahead and tell us about them.
Yeah, and I recommend, taking as much time as necessary and watching each video as many times as is necessary to absorb it, because they're made dense on purpose, and they're made to be studied. But the pyramid videos, you've interviewed Joseph Farrell.
Yes, sir.
And great videos that you've done with him, by the way. Great interviews.
I've spent 150 hours of research, plus the years of listening to him being interviewed, so I knew him very well. I read an entire book just for that interview.
Well, it's appreciated. And he's done a lot on the Great Pyramid.
Yep.
And I had an insight that was along the same line, but a little bit separate. But Joseph touches on this in a number of places. The Great Pyramid itself, some believe, like Christopher Dunn that he mentions, that it's a power plant.
Yep.
But the point is made very effectively in several different ways by Joseph Farrell that this is a receiver. It's a energy receiver and transmitter.
A transmitter, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's parabolic, and yes, it's an absolute.
It doesn't create the power; it just harnesses the electromagnetic energy through the structure.
And this is actually really important, and this is one of the main reasons why it's on the dollar bill, why it's on the Great Seal, because this is an ancient power node that's centralized. And I came to learn about this actually from watching the Lake House, because they were modeling the Great Pyramid and modeling the Throne of Heaven at the same time. There were overlays in two places. And as I watched and learned what they were doing, I understood from the ritual that they were referencing the power of the Great Pyramid, not as some just historical artifact, but as one that's very much germane to their power base and their hope today. It's related to CERN and the LHC.
Can I bring up something?
You certainly can.
I know some people who don't think that CERN is the thing that's really responsible for things like the Mandela effect. They say that there is a Project Looking Glass where they're going into the past, and at least looking into the past, and I think looking into the future, and possibly traveling to and fro with this project. And they think that CERN is a diversion.
A diversion, as in a distraction diversion?
Yeah, exactly. Getting people to focus on that while they're busy doing the real work elsewhere.
I doubt it, Amy. I wouldn't, I don't know, I would take that one with a pinch of salt.
Well, I'm just saying, like I said, I just know some people who are saying that. That's all. I'm not saying I believe it or not.
The thing with CERN is it's visible. It's in the news.
Right.
It's visible. We can see what they do. They put films out there.
Now, you mentioned in one of your videos about the interdimensional portals, and that instantly brought to my mind while you were saying that the whole CERN thing itself, where they're trying to get somebody back out of this dimension. Can you just go into that a bit?
Yeah,
something or someone out of the dimension.
yeah, they're trying to open the dimensional portal and bring back Apollo, who was worshipped at a temple right inside the circle of the CERN LHC. They're trying to open up the portal through all kinds of different ritual means, and they're bringing Horus through.
Do you think they're bringing him here or trying to get him home? Because we go back to what we were just speaking about when Satan, or whatever you want to call him, right, was cast to Earth, right? And now are they trying to get him out of here? That was what came to mind when I watched your video.
They're trying to bring him into concretion. He's in the abyss. He's kind of in an isolated zone, kind of a planetary prison in a sense. And
So like a purgatory, a galactic purgatory sort of thing.
And is he there by himself?
he's imprisoned. No, he's got other agents there with him.
So is it the prison of Tartarus? Is it that old story?
Yeah, the bottomless pit. And they know he's there. They're in communication with him. He manifests in different ways, like Aleister Crowley communed with him and his agent Iwas when he was inside the Great Pyramid. I think it was 1920, somewhere around in that era.
Wait, Aleister Crowley was in the Great Pyramid?
Honeymooning. He took his wife, one of his wives there, Rose, and they honeymooned there. They spent a night in the king's chamber. They did a ritual. Crowley did a ritual where he lit it up with this magical UV light. And yeah, it's quite a story.
Wow, how interesting.
So the thing about the Great Pyramid is that it's an actual centralized receiver for all the ancient monuments on a grid. You know, there is a ley line grid, you could call it, and it's been documented. Joseph Farrell will tell you about that. And the reason for that is because these connection lines are required, and these are what they call subtle energies.
Yes,
and
subtle.
When you talk about being on stage, Aaron, you talk about this dynamic that exists. There's an energetic transfer.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And in the pyramid that you've got pictured on your icon for Google, that was a receiver and a transmitter, one in the node that's centralized on the Great Pyramid. Buckminster Fuller.
Yep, I know. Yep.
So this grid system is still in place. And when you talk about the great cathedrals, when you talk about, you know, Chartres, when you talk about all the great cathedrals and all the ancient stone circles,
Monument,
all connected, and it's energetically. And so people are drawn to worship there. You know, every year at Stonehenge, all the special times of the year, and there's a harvest that takes place, and it's in both directions. It's a receiver. That's why they go there, because they're getting a transmission that's supernatural, and all the ones who participate will tell you that there's something special about the place. They go there and they bask in this radiant energy, and they're also giving off their own energy. They're feeding into the harvest, and this is what the gods crave. And so there's a transfer that takes place, but feeding off of that, there's a kind of a battery that's involved as a storage, and this is what the Great Pyramid in part is for.
Isn't that what go ahead, please, I don't want to interrupt you, go ahead.
All the worship that's taken place in these cathedrals, all the sacrificial rituals that are being done, these are all feeding in to the subtle energies. It's not all about the kind of tangible energy that we think of when we think of solar energy or thermal energy. That's involved. Everywhere where Joseph says, you know, there's a dimensional analog, which is where the features of the Great Pyramid are identifying some number that we know to be legitimate, the distance to the sun, the circumference of the moon, the relationship of the ratio between the Earth and the moon. All these things are encoded in, not because they just want to impress us, but because this is part of kind of the tuning of the frequency to receive this particular kind of energy. And
it's the mechanics of the universe, isn't it?
yeah, it was designed this way. And so these ancient artifacts were exploited by the ancients and are still exploited by some today as receivers and harness, to harness this energy. That's the point. It's not just to have it, but to harness it. And that's what the Great Pyramid is for. And what Joseph describes, he also talks about the time element. But what I haven't yet really been able to get into, because I was diverted from it, but in the Great Pyramid, there's a calendar in stone, it's called. And if you identify a year by the marks that are engraved on a wall in the descending passage, you can mark off this calendar. And the great transition into the ascending passage off from the descending passage, the one that goes up to the Queen's chamber and the King's chamber.
Right.
At that point, that marks the time of the Exodus.
Yeah. As you walk up and measure the measurements, as you walk up that passageway, line up with history as well. History.
So on this passage, once you get up to the floor level of the Queen's chamber, up to the floor level, and the, certain parts of the architecture, that internal structure, are marked off. And if you go according to the scale of this calibration mark that's actually scored inside, you find that this is actually related to the Ark of the Covenant. And the Ark of the Covenant I mentioned earlier has to do with time. And when they crossed the Jordan at the end of the Exodus, or the end of the wandering in the wilderness, they took this Ark of the Covenant, which was a portable center of time. And the Great Pyramid is actually bound to history itself in connection with the Ark of the Covenant. And Joseph Farrell, he mentions a lot of points about time, and he mentions a lot of points about these dimensional analogs, but the insight that I had that was additional to that has to do with the purpose of this internal calendar, because it's not just there to impress us with their knowledge. Obviously, they had knowledge of the future, otherwise they couldn't mark it off perfectly according to what we now know as history. This is ancient. So it tells us either, one, they had knowledge of the future and encoded it into the architecture, or they built it in the future and sent it back into the past. And that's a legitimate option, right? This is a theme that was taken up in the show Fringe, where the people of the future sent the artifact back into the past. So this kind of thing is legitimate. And when you're talking about the encoding of this dimensional analog of history itself, what you've done is now you've given it a resonance with time. And when you think that through in the context that Joseph Farrell talks about it, he calls it the Giza Death Star and says that this is, capable of being like the Death Star in Star Wars, where it can have the capability of destroying planets. That if you use an energy that makes it resonate like two tuning forks, you hit one, if the other's on the same frequency, the one that you didn't hit will start to vibrate, because energy transfers through the oscillation because the frequencies are matched, they're in tune. And so with the principle that Joseph Farrell talks about, he says if you resonate the pyramid with the earth, like with the Schumann frequency, the Schumann
The
resonance,
resonance, yes.
then you can do one of two things. You can either absorb the energy from the earth, from the tuning with the Schumann resonance, or you can feed back other energies on that same frequency or a harmonic of that frequency. And then you can feed energy from the pyramid that it's receiving from the solar system or from other places, from other dimensions, into the earth. And so you can increase the energy level of the earth through the Schumann resonance through the Great Pyramid. So energy transfer happens. This is just a very simple principle. Everything has a frequency. People do healing with aromatics because there's a frequency involved there. People use tuning forks to meditate. Mandalas, these designs that are circular.
Mandalas.
Yeah, people meditate on those because there's a frequency. You know,
There's a frequency within the geometry itself.
Yeah. And so these frequencies that feed in, the capability is there through the means of human and angelic capability to control and tune the Great Pyramid, to harness the energies that are there. This is how it worked in the past. There were gemstones, probably, lining the Grand Gallery that set up oscillations, and possibly a capstone, possibly a golden capstone. We speculate about that. But this machine was not just for entertainment purposes. They weren't just beaming holograms of Looney Tunes so they could see Donald Duck poking himself with a gun barrel, right? They're doing this for a reason, and I think that Joseph and his uncoding of history, you know, with Tiamat and the things that went on there with his cosmic war book, I think he's on the right track. And I think this was disabled for a reason. And I think CERN is a supplemental technology along with HARP, HAARP, which
we know about HARP.
Yeah, we
massive
know about
amounts
HAARP.
of energy into the ionosphere, and not for no reason. And so these energies have to be harnessed and controlled. And I think that's the purpose of being centralized on the Great Pyramid, and that the capability wasn't all mechanical. It was in the same way the energies were harnessed. It has to do with the worship of the gods and this interaction with the gods. And, you know, we see this, a lot of people are skeptical about that, but if you understand theurgy and see what they're actually able to do with their communion with the gods, it's hard to argue against. So the Great Pyramid, it's on the $1 bill because it's exploited as a symbol, and America is actually, as a superpower, tapped in to the actual subliminal energies of the Great Pyramid, exploiting the power of the Great Pyramid in our money.
Well, now, Bob, I've learned before that as we were talking about earlier, the phalanxes, the obelisks that are all across the world are all actually channeling this energy as well, because it comes in as sine wave, in the form of a sine waves, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the bottom to the top, and they come in the top and then they transfer the energy through it out the bottom. And these are all pretty much, that's why a lot of governmental buildings and such have these obelisks, so that they can harness that energies to use it to their advantage, things like that.
That's why there's one in the middle of St. Peter's Square. That's why there's one next to the Thames in London, why there's one in Central Park, why there's one in France, down the road from the Eiffel Tower.
Yep. And I live in Victoria, BC, which is the capital here in BC, and we have one on our Parliament lawn, an obelisk.
There is an obelisk in every single major city on this planet, just so you know. And I've been to a few of them.
harnessing that energies?
From one side of the globe to the other. Like I said, I've been to Rome. I've seen all those. I've been to Mexico City, which is one of the largest cities in the world, 25 million population. And right there, our hotel was within walking distance of what you would call town square, you know, the center of the city with a big roundabout and a huge obelisk. And by the way, I've got pictures of it somewhere buried in my old photos. But at the bottom of this huge pyramid in the center of Mexico City are symbols of fascism. There are fasci, which are the column, the bundle of sticks with the wrapping. You understand what the fascia is?
Yeah.
So,
They have them in the
and yeah,
State Department has.
yeah. Nancy hates going on vacation with me because I point the stuff out everywhere we go. It's
Right.
so yeah. I mean, and I also travel for work, man. I've been to Maine and I've been to Miami and I've been to practically every big and small town in between, all the way up and down the East Coast. As far west as Kentucky was my field of work for a couple of years. And I'm gonna tell you right now, there's a Freemasons lodge on every corner, and I don't care how freaking small the town is. There might be a dirt road going one way and a paved road going the other way, with a church on one corner, a school on the other, maybe a fire department on the other, and guess what's on the fourth corner? There's a Freemason lodge or a Shriners lodge. I guarantee it's in every small town. There's an obelisk and a Freemason lodge in every single town on this freaking planet. And the occult, whoever's running this world, they are overwhelmingly obsessed with Egypt, the symbology, the obelisks, the pyramids. So yeah, there's that.
So Bob, where do you think everything is heading in this point? Do you think it's heading, like, I believe it's going to head into like some sort of Babylonian future where it's going to take something divine to come in and save us from all this madness. What do you think?
Well, that's a good point. I wanted to share my screen with you before we go there, because there's something that shouldn't go overlooked here before we leave the obelisk realm. Can you see my screen?
I got you.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a cemetery, or just any random cemetery. So if you want to see obelisks and you want to see a lot of them, go to the cemetery.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
And the reason why, and you'll see a lot of confirming symbols usually written on them. The reason why is because it's the phallus of Osiris, and it's a resurrection sex magic ritual. Like,
Oh wow.
like
Well, yeah, because wasn't the story of Osiris, he was chopped into 13 pieces, and Isis gathered up all the pieces except for the phallic, right? And in order to resurrect him, she had to fashion one out of stone, right? That's what that story is all about?
yeah, she made a magical phallus to impregnate herself to bring forth Horus, because a fish ate the phallus and it couldn't be recovered. So this is a sex magic ritual. It's like the Washington Monument, the world's biggest, but there they are, because it's a resurrection thing, and it has to do with the hope in the resurrection of Horus. And this is, when you ask me and where it's going, and really is an important deal, because you've got to ask that at some point, because you see the complete obsession with this resurrection of Horus thing. All the Freemason lodges are completely obsessed with it. They call him Hiram Abiff to obscure it, but the little coffin down underneath their tracing boards, underneath their checkerboard floor, is the coffin of Osiris. And it's about the hope of his resurrection. And in the Bible, the identity is an Antichrist identity. And this is a manifestation of the spirit of Antichrist in a man. And this is what Horus is. He's the spirit of Antichrist, or a former incarnation of the Antichrist spirit. So when you see all this, this is a hope in Antichrist, kind of a book of Revelation theme that's trending in all this imagery. And the whole point of the hijacking of the illumined with their slave handler programmer schema is to bring about the time when they can bring forth this Antichrist agent, and they want to return this back to a former state. That's why there's so much focus on changing the environment, rewriting our DNA, changing us through pharmaceuticals, making our minds programmed to think in certain ways. The green agenda, that's Satan's color, that's the Satan agenda. And they're working to bring this toward that goal to basically seat Satan on the throne. And, you know, a lot of biblical quotes could be brought out here, but all these things that are signaled have to do with fulfilling Bible prophecy. And that's why, you know, in the Freemason Lodge, they put their square and compass on the open Bible on a pedestal, because that's part of the seal ritual that they do. And their hope of hijacking everything that the true God has for his own purposes is pretty well fulfilled. When you look at the Christian church, most everybody will tell you, okay, yeah, the Pope, he's the boss, right? Because that's what all the movies will tell you. All the movies, all the TV shows. You go in the churches and the people are typically crossing themselves and kneeling down and kissing their beads and, you know, doing their usual Catholic thing. Everybody wants to talk to the guy who's in charge of it, so they talk to the priest, and he's got the collar and, you know, the whole shtick. Well, this is the mind control program that they want to run on everybody. The Pope is in charge of something, but it's not the Christian church per se. It's a hijacked version of the Christian church.
Well, yeah, I mean, I believe it's just kind of like from when the Jesuits took over the Vatican and took control of it, right? They twisted it all, right? I mean, the whole Vatican is shaped like a damn serpent, for crying out loud. So, you know.
It was actually created that way from the beginning. You know, when you look in the Bible, in the early church, right in the 1st century, it says in the book of Acts that all of Asia, which is not the continent we know, but it was a province, it turned against the Apostle Paul already. And that was really early on. By the time Constantine came around, if you know your church history, he was the first guy to basically make it official, make it a state religion. And a lot of people are taught, oh, that was a good thing, right? A lot of Christians will tell you, yeah, that's good, because then they're not persecuted anymore. But no,
right.
That was like the death knell. It was completely history by then. It had been completely hijacked. And the Catholic Church, if you look at their history, they're just all about hijacking the statue of Diana, Isis, all the goddesses to be their Mary, hijacking of Mithras, Saturn, Jupiter, Horus, Apollo, and that's your sun god, which they call Jesus, and they call him, you know, the Jesus of the Bible, but it's really Osiris, or, you know, whatever name of the sun god you want to give him. Saturnalia, you know, that's Christmas. Look at your history.
Yep.
You see the Virgin Mary sitting there with suckling the child, and that's Isis and
that's right, Horus.
Yep.
You know,
that's right. It's in the Sumerian carvings. It's in Babylonian carvings. It's in Egyptian carvings. It's in the Christian iconography. Absolutely.
Yeah, and when you were in the Vatican Museum, you probably saw lots of people pointing up with their right hand and pointing down with their left, because it's a
that's Baphomet.
Yep.
As above, so below.
Yeah.
Salve coagula, you know, the old alchemy routine. goes way back. It's got nothing to do with my Lord as a Christian. Got nothing to do with that at all, except the counterfeit. And it's very effective. And it shows you, when you get to see these things that you've been able to see now, you look at the videos that I put out and this can't be coincidence.
No.
I can't possibly be making these things up.
Yeah, you just can't make it up, no.
No. I'm accused of that all the time. People come on, they watch 5 minutes of a video and say, "Oh,
you're reaching.
You scam.
Yeah.
You're just making stuff up."
Yeah.
Well, if you watch 10 minutes, you might think that. If you watch one video with half an eye open, you might think that. But if you watch a couple, if you find something engaging and kind of invest yourself a little bit and find out if it's really true.
Yeah, like we said earlier, the redundancy is overwhelming. And, on occasion, I won't lie, Bob, on rare occasions, and they are kind of rare, I have the occasional thought that maybe you're reaching a little bit for one conclusion over another. But again, my mind goes right back to the redundancy, and then I say to myself, nope, absolutely not. These are sick fuckers we're dealing with. They encode like crazy, there's just no way. There's just too much redundancy.
Yep.
And we know that they're sick bastards. We know this to our core. We know it without a doubt that they're the sickest among the human race.
Pizzagate,
Yeah, I didn't get a chance. I wanted to share one of your pizza videos, and we're at the top of the hour. If you got something really interesting, we could hang for a few minutes. Otherwise, I would just love to have you back and, go ahead and cut this off maybe. And like I said, if you got something really interesting, we'll stick around. But I'll be thrilled to have you come back. This is great conversation.
Well, let's cut it off, but I'll close with just saying that these Pizzagate videos, and you mentioned the ones with Katy Perry and the stage set for her music video. It's very compelling when you see the symbols of Pizzagate and when you understand how they get their power and what pizza really means. And it's more than pedophilia. It has to do with their power base. It has to do with ritual sodomy. It has to do with coprophagy.
Beta sex kittens.
Eating blood, eating menstrual blood, eating vomit, eating feces.
Cannibalism.
Urine, cannibalism. And in a ritual way, not just for entertainment, not because they're hungry. They do this because this is their power. And when people expose Pizzagate, how many of them get down to the truth? It's maybe all about pedophilia and some unknown whatever, because the powers that be own the Pizzagate exposure as well. I want to read a quote.
Yeah, go ahead.
That I sent in your email, and I'll recommend people just watch the Pizzagate videos a couple of times until you get a real handle on what's going on there, because what you usually find on YouTube doesn't tell enough of the story to clue you into what's really going on. There's something deeper there. So Adolf Hitler said, if you tell a big enough lie and tell it frequently enough, it will be believed. He knew how to tell a big lie. And Joseph Mengele, the angel of death, who's also known as Dr. Green, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yes.
It's his Illuminati programmer identity, Dr. Green. And he said, the more we do to you, the less you seem to believe we are doing it.
Yep.
Yep.
For those of us with eyes to see, those are disturbing quotes.
Yeah, it's almost a form of Stockholm syndrome in a way.
It's a real smack in the face to some of us.
Well, this has been fascinating chatting with you, Bob. We'd love to have you come back again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you. You guys are a good panel.
Another great quote that I would like to leave everybody with, obviously it's on the screen, but I'll read it out. None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe that they are free.
Very true. Very, very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, land of the free. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I really, Bob, I wanted to read that entire email at the beginning of the show, but I just didn't want to take the time. I wanted to get, on to having a conversation with you. But I told Amy in the Skype message, I told her, I said, I'm probably going to read a big portion of this email because it's good stuff. It's worth mentioning, all of it, really. So
it just flowed. I thought about, how to prepare for this, and it just flowed out. And I'm like, yep, that's it right there. There it is. And I'm glad you read it. I'm glad you appreciated that because, all the things we could have talked about, I think you summed it up right there. Just tackling that right from the beginning.
Well, again, this has been a fascinating conversation. I think you're an amazing guy. I think you've got some incredible insights. I think the work you're doing on your channel is well worth the investment of time for anybody who is seeking answers to deep questions. So thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for your time with us tonight. And I would really love to have you back sometime.
Thank you. Aaron and I pour our lives into this, and we're really grateful for those of you who appreciate it. We are not many in number, but we are significant.
And for the record, I think it's probably important for me to mention, even though I give you such high accolades, I think it's important to mention that I personally am not a religious person. And even though you are, it's important to recognize that there is a cross-pollination that needs to take place rather than being separated and ignore your channel because you have a religious slant to some of your content, rather than ignore that channel because I'm agnostic, as it were. I'm not the kind of person that would do that. I'm willing to talk to just about anybody. I'm willing to listen to dissenting opinions, dissenting voices. I'm willing to, I'll take truth anywhere I can find it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
I respect that. It's commendable, and I appreciate that.
All right, Ian, are you about ready? I just want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. Johnny Supertramp, Greatest Potential. We have a bunch of new people. Jane Eyre, Colin James. Love my buddy Blue Bud. There's Allison Twist. She showed up a little bit late. I just want to thank everybody for all their contributions. Lady Zaga, Mackinstood, thank you for saying good show. Joanne Galvin, Marie T. And if I don't mention you, please forgive me. There's a lot of people in here. Hey, Jason Ogden. He said he's usually late to the live show, but you can catch us because it uploads. What's that? Drawing Colors. We got a lot of new people in here tonight. I want to appreciate all the contributions. Wilson, definitely want to just say thank you to everybody. Wade 57 made an appearance. And
thanks, Blue Blood, for being a great moderator. And Illusion Shattered, thanks for coming again. Illusion Shattered was here. I didn't see that. Jane Eyre.
Johnny Supertramp.
I mentioned Johnny.
Oh, I missed it. Sorry.
Saul Goodman has been hanging out all night.
That's an awesome name.
The Big P.
Big P made an appearance. Thank you, guys. We do love you all. And I very much appreciate the contributions in the chat box. Very much appreciate engaging with people who can add to the conversation and sometimes correct us when we make our mistakes. And I just really, Undefeated Champ, I want to give a shout out. Greatest Potential.
RR, Plan B, or otherwise known as Rebel Rhymes.
Oh, yeah. Chirpy was here for a little while. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cleo Seeker, there's a new person there. We do love engaging people in the chat. We love this platform for this purpose. So thank you all for being here. Much love to everybody. And Ian, whenever you're ready. Bob, thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Love all.
See you guys next Friday.
Thanks for having me on.
Much love, everybody. Bob, we'll talk soon. And don't forget, Bob, go check out Truth Heresy. I'm really interested in your opinion on what he's doing over there.
Got it on a note. I'll check it out.
I mean, you might gain some insights. You might come back and say the guy's full of shit. I'm interested in what you think.
Thanks for the tip.
Whenever you're ready, Ian. Thanks,
Hey, bye,
everybody.
guys. See you next Friday.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.